is, why has this been like this when at a later stage there is somewhere where you talk about the resolution of the Executive Council for Ntingwe and I think Mchindi to be taken by ADA. But that also has not happened. But from the look of things, Chair, I think Ntingwe is being allowed to disintegrate. That is what is happening. Right now, it doesn't seem like there is a strong efforts to save Ntingwe. And if Ntingwe goes down, what it means is the jobs there are going to be lost and a lot of people are going to suffer. I'm not convinced, like you were also saying, HOD, you were not very courageous in what you're saying, that the engagements you have had with Ital are going to be paying off. But something has got to be done by the department. This thing has been going on for ages, of Ntingwe and the department and Ital. Really, it has got to be resolved, and so that the government can save jobs for those people in Ntingwe. It's just a comment, Chair. Then we go to irregular expenditure. Irregular expenditure, Chair, there is just no consequence management. There is people jumping ship. You know, every time a case is pursued, the report is that the official has retired. The official has gone to another department. The official resigned. But you know, what we have repeatedly said to our government departments is resignation does not mean that you cannot still pursue the case. That an official has gone to another department does not mean that you cannot continue to pursue the case. So it's okay, you report to us that a person has left your department, but tell us, what engagements have you had with the other department where the person has gone to? If the person is at home, what engagements have you had with the SAPS or the law enforcement officers so that even when the person is at home, but he has not run away from the law? We are not hearing that from your cases. There are so many. There are so many HOT instances where people are just doing wrong things and they run away by resigning and you let them go. It can't be like that. Resolution 150. Resolution 150. Where is this? Resolution 150. Bear with me, Chair. Oh, I went back to 148 again. All right, Resolution 150, the response seems to be a repeat of what you said. This is not new. I think this thing was there again in the previous audit, and the response was exactly the same. So what I'm saying is we are not moving HOD, because the corrective measures here you are giving us are the same corrective measures that you gave us last time. So it means that we are not improving, we are not going forward. On the issue of disciplinary issues, I've already stated that I'm concerned on the issue of officials jumping ship. And then on page 16, I don't know what the resolution band or page 16. On page 16, you say you spoke to you referred the issue to the OTP and the state law officer who recommended that the case must fall away. That is very strange, just because of time lapse. Now, because it's been years that this thing has not been pursued, then the advice is, no, drop the case. But no, HOD, you are the accounting officer. See, now I want to hear from you. Do you want to drop the case? The state law advisor, it's advice. It's something else. You are the accounting officer. Why do you drop the case just because there has been time lapse? That is what you need to account to us. Irrespective of whatever advice you may have received from whom, you are accounting to us here. You are the accounting office. You cannot tell us somebody advise you to do this, even if it's wrong and you agree to it. It can't be. And then, Chairperson, page 18. That's where the state law advisor is. It's the same thing with page 16. It's time lapse again, and the case is dropped. And then on page 19, on page 19 and 20, I'm very concerned with those reports, Chairperson. You know, it's a string of cases involving large sums of money. It seems like, you know, in those years, in that financial year, there was a pattern in this department where there were bogus service providers who were just lining up their pockets. And when cases got pursued, people leave the department. They are nowhere else to be found. But it's a pattern. It's it's NPOs, it's NGOs, it's companies that were posing as service providers involving officials of the department. It were their own companies. They were doing service themselves. Now, when these things are pursued, all of them are off. It's a pattern that takes, for about 4 or 5 years of that financial year. I think something still needs to be done there, HOD. We can't let them go like that. They still need to pursue wherever they are because those companies go after them. This was a pattern in this department in that financial year. People were just taking money from government, giving it to themselves. And then resolution 157 on page 23, Chairperson. On page 23, the response you are giving there, which says the response talks only to what you are going to do going forward. It doesn't tell us how you are going to make corrective measures, how you are going to get back what was lost to the department. It's okay, corrective measures going forward are there, but it's not looking backwards. I wrote here that it's only forward-looking. It is not retrospective. You need also to go back. How are you going to get back what was lost to the department? In that response you are giving us on page 23 in resolution 157. And the last one, my last one is page 24. Chairperson. Where there is no amount, you are just you are generalizing HOD. You are not telling us about the amount that was submitted for condonation. You are just talking about money that was submitted to applications to finance for condonation. The specific amounts are not given. Those are my issues, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
You hear me?
Oh, it's all right.
Now can you hear? Oh, I wasn't. I had to open a number of things. No, I wanted just to indicate to Chairperson that since one came here in 2009, problems were like the Drakensberg Mountain in the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. And those problems were not being addressed at all, even by the accounting officers. I don't want to mention the highly educated accounting officers that we had in that department. Two of them in the main who too, as Honorable Kaula is having problems, also jumped the ship. But now talking about the facts. No, highly educated one, not Mr. like myself. No, this is what we're talking about, so that we all understand where we come from. We think that there is a slight movement. Can I continue, Chair? Yeah, no. I'm personally having that history. I am seeing the slight movement. Most fortunately, I don't take for granted because I'm leading the committee that it does financial oversight over the whole government. I know what the new HOD said. We also know the problems that were experienced by him when he joined this department, including the interviews that took place somewhere along the sea and all the stuff, because they wanted to address problems. That's why I want to take for granted. But the things that I am worried about is what is the related to underspending of the conditional grants. Now I'm asking a question, HOD and your team. Are you certain, giving us assurance, that the underspending of the conditional grants that is chronic in this department will be really resolved by the end of this month? Well, that's when the financial year is ending. We are talking about 60.5 million rand and all the stuff. I wanted just to find out if you are sure that you are going to fully spend it, or if you can't fully spend it, fully commit it, because it has been a sore point for a long time. That's why then we would say, without any contradiction, that you came when the underspending generally in the department was more than 200 million. I remember vividly, because I also preside over what is called the closeout reports. Then now to talk about 17 point something million is sending me a signal that we are moving to a particular direction. The same with the conditional grants. But on the conditional grants, I believe that the amount is still very high. Bearing in mind that if you fail to commit it, then it means that we lose the money to the National Revenue Fund. That's where my main concern is. No, that is one part. Honorable Kaula raised this serious concern about this Ntingo thing. There seems to be new problems surrounding Ntingwe T. When we took the resolution of taking it from somewhere to the department because it has got to do with agriculture, we never knew the problems that are posed by one of the entities of our government, the so-called Itala. I'm just wondering as to whether the turnaround plan that we all want is going to be achieved when Itala appears to be intransigent as far as my assessment of the deals and when you are selling things and all that is concerned. I just want to find out as to whether the matter has been raised with the cabinet of the province so that it intervenes, because I believe that Itala is not in line with the processes. I don't know why I don't believe in that. If they can't produce evidence of the value of something and all the stuff, then I'm having a major problem about that. I wanted just to find out in that particular area whether the matter has been deliberated with the provincial executive. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable Nkosi. I've just, the IT team, because of the sound problems we've been having, have advised us that when we speak, we should unmute our teams so that they can hear us. So that's what I'm doing. I hope it's working. Before we hand over to the department, I want to just echo the concerns that colleagues have raised, HOD in your team. The first one is around the issue of, let me just get this right, so I've got all my notes correctly. Yes, the first one is around the underspending of the budget, as Honorable Kaula reported or raised. You see, there's been underspending of your conditional grants, and those rollovers, which were repeated rollover requests were not granted. So the department then used funds from the equitable share, based on what you call savings on compensation of employees. But the reality is, as Honorable Kaula has said, that those funds were budgeted for compensation of employees. And you didn't spend on that. And if you hadn't diverted it to use on what should have been spent from your conditional grant fundings, you'd have had a further under expenditure of your budget. So it's two issues. One is your equitable share would have been underspent. In reality, it is because you've used funds allocated for something else to make up your underspending on the conditional grant. So that is a concern, particularly as you had initially received the rollover requests from the previous year. When you repeated the request because you couldn't spend again, it was declined. I think we've been seeing this reflected in the DORA divisions. Honorable Nkosi will bear me out, where you find reductions in the amounts allocated to departments by way of conditional grants. Because when funds are not spent, then the DORA allocation drops. So the province loses out. So this is a concern. The second one is on Resolution 147. And this one, I think, is really, really serious, colleagues. You see, there was a 27.8 million investment in Ntingwe at some point, and the AG identified this as a material impairment because no returns are expected from Ntingwe. It's it's not producing anything, to talk about returns. So that's the first thing. The second concern is that there have now been 3 turnaround strategies in Ntingwe, each one costing money. The first one was in the period 1920 to 2021, 13.8 million went to ADA for the turnaround. Then there was 135 million input by government, right? And then in 21-22, there's 100 million requested for a turnaround strategy. So that's like over 200 and some odd million that's going into a bottomless well because there are no returns. There's a material impairment, right? It's money getting wasted if it's not used properly. Then there are governance issues. The board is not lawfully constituted. There's just one member. Then the financial statements are not produced, with the last financial statement being produced in 2015. Then IDFC is giving the story about an alleged debt of 65 million, and they're trying, it seems to me, to hold the department to ransom, to say that we're not going to proceed with any merger, anything else, until the 65 million is paid for. But IDC was supposed to be the secretariat for Ntingwe. What value have they delivered? So there's a serious, serious problem in all of this. And then to compound the situation, there's supposed to be a merger with Ntingwe and Njindi, which I think will be a disaster as it is right now. There's too many unresolved issues. So this one, colleagues, needs special attention. And I think it needs more than just the department. We need ETIA, we need finance, treasury, to come in and look at what's going on, because there's a lot of money that's thrown here and no returns. There's governance issues, no financial statements, there's board issues. We understand that The impending merger means maybe there's a reluctance about a board, but this board has been unlawful even before the impending merger. So it's very serious. And Ntingwe has been looked at, and people have been fighting to say retain the company because it has the potential to create jobs and stuff like that. Unfortunately, none of that is being done. You know, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Right now, seems like that's where we are. So on this one here, I think there's a whole lot of issues that will have to be addressed. I don't think we're going to be able to get answers right now from the department. I think more work has to be done, and we need to see a clearer path. But right now, there are serious governance issues, serious financial issues, serious wastage of money that's occurring, and non-performance on the part of this entity, which is also a state-owned entity, supposedly, supposed to be the secretariat, not doing what it should do. So I just wanted to make those points. I don't think the answers can be provided now, but I think the issues need to be raised so that we can follow them up in a more concrete way. And I think ETIA has to. Colleagues, when we meet ETIA, we need to ask questions about what's going on as well. Then on the irregular expenditure, I am concerned where the department is saying that it's made submissions to provincial treasury and is being held back about condonation because it seems like there are capacity constraints in provincial treasury. So I think we're going to need to have some resolution passed about provincial treasury and the condonation process, and how much departments are holding it back, or how much, or what it has to say about this. Then in terms of the investigations, I want to echo what colleagues are saying, that the concern, and it's not just agriculture, but it seems to be very evident here. One of the issues is that there's this long time lapse before investigations reach finality, by which time you cannot act, or you cannot even take any action. And I know the HOD is relatively new, so I think you may have inherited many of these. But it comes with your job, unfortunately. So the issue here is these delays in the investigations and the completion. The suspicion can be, are these things actually deliberate so that no action is taken? The second issue is, what happens to the officials who have left the department? You get an investigation, lots of monies have been identified, millions, but people resign, they go off. What happens to the funds? I'd like to see what thinking there is in the department about cost recovery. That yes, people go, good riddance to them if they've done bad things, but the monies, public monies, what happens to that? Yeah, those are just the issues that I wanted to raise as well. Let me hand over to HOD and his team.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm audible enough, Chair. Thank you. Let me start with the Honorable Kaula, whom I respect and we look up to. Honorable Kaula, I'm not sure what causes your confusion on the basis that the submissions were done and met the timeline. But that confusion, I hope it's not us in any way, because it can't hear. Thank you. I will try to use both the mics now. Honorable Kaula, as I've said, Honorable Kaula, that we respect a lot. I hope the confusion is not caused in any way by ourselves. I know it's caused by his delay in the reading of the resolutions, which he confirmed that it was yesterday. And given the complexity and the dynamics of the issues, definitely it's bound to be confused. But we will clarify the issues now to the Honourable that we respect a lot. Honourable Kaula is raising serious issues, which are really issues that that requires a lot of attention, and some of them, in most cases, have been addressed. But the one that Honourable Kaula is raising in relation to the rollover not approved and the reprioritization of the budget to make sure that the service delivery is mainly achieved, because our main task as technocrats is to make sure that there is delivery of service. That is the primary task. And of course, the issue of employees as support staff, of course, is one issue that is also critical and priority for us. But we are running a dynamic organization, Honourable Chair, and such that you have employed people who should be thinking with their feet in terms of how to arrive at solutions. The reprioritization of budget is one area which is lawful in our systems, and we will consider that after due diligence and consideration of a number of options. And one of the challenges we have in the department, Honourable Chair and Honourable Kaula, is that we have a high staff turnover. I'll give you the reason why. It's one department with a high staff turnover. We did a study recently. I think we will conduct another one. The average age of our staff is about 50. And the staff turnover ratio is so high given the age of our staff members. You have a vacancy rate which is 8%, but that vacancy rate cannot be traced with recruitment. You won't make it. Because every year we recruit young people, but the number of retirements in the last 2 years have been very, very high. So that is where, and the retirement, you plan it up front, but you've not, you plan it up front, but of course it's going to affect your budget. You know why? You know, it's nice to work in the municipality. I'm coming from there. You take the decision in council in the afternoon, after consultation in the morning, call an agent meeting, the decision is taken. Done. You work tomorrow. In the province, what you do, you must prepare submission to the MEC for approval, to Treasury for approval, to the Office of the Premier for approval, to the DGG. It comes back after 2 months. What do you do with that money? The money stays there doing nothing. Yeah? So I studied business. When the money is doing nothing, it does not generate any interest for us. So what you do, you reprioritize that money to generate value for it. However, our reprioritization at times is not at the speed in which we want to do, because now and again we push for recruitment. As the HR manager, Chief Secretary said, we have appointed more than 60 people in 1 year. How many departments can do that? Very few, and we've done that. And given the previous vacancy rates, it was very high. So to keep up with that particular process of recruitment, which is what we want to do, unemployment is very high. We know that. So recruiting one person is putting food into the table of 10 people. So we know that plight. But the process is internally, the higher turnover rate causes us to think on how to utilize those funds that we realize as a result of that process. You have raised another very important issue, Honourable, in terms of integrity. Yes, of course, there was a decision taken in terms of what the Honourable Chairperson have said and Honourable Ngosi have said as well. To say, in thing where we need to integrate as part of the rationalization process and all these entities be rationalized. It's an old resolution. I came to the department with the intention to do that. We did with Mchindi, we rationalized Mchindi. It's now under other. We are still dealing with the issue of the infrastructure at Makhathini as to the ownership of the infrastructure. For example, the ownership of the land, I think all of us should acknowledge that the land reform program, the trust, no longer controlled by the department or the national department. However, the infrastructure in that land was still dealing with the issue, the canal, the pumps, and all of those issues, which we are currently recapitalizing, because for the sake of our food security, we have to do that. We cannot say because now the land is yours, therefore we're going to withdraw our support, which was somehow a view in the department at some point to say, look, let us transfer everything to the trust. They will see how to deal with that. It's not going to help, because if you've been there, you will see the disparity of the farmers in terms of their access to water. The pumps are old, they need to be refurbished. The canal has been destroyed, they need to be restored. So these are some of the issues that we are currently intervening as far as GD. But it comes to Intingwe now. Intingwe, I think the chairperson was correct in her analysis. Each of them must come and account with IDFC. We've got it on record. We've been trying to get this thing out of their hog. It's in albatross with me. Come to the AG, because I'm the accounting officer in terms of any fund we use. However, the funds that we use currently is to maintain this. Yes, there's no revenue that is generated. However, if we withdraw the maintenance of the estate will depreciate to such an extent that it will have no value. And to resuscitate it is going to be more costly, and for government, by the way, in the future as well. So we need to finalize the issues I've raised earlier on, the issues of governance, agency, the issues of financial statements, the issues of the board, and the delisting of the estate, and then develop a model and then transfer the estate to the rightful entity. Then the rightful entity will then develop a turnaround plan. The turnaround plan that everybody is talking about. Let me be frank, and I will share. When I came in 2020, there was a turnaround plan developed by the team. You know, when you come to the organization, you take things as they flow, you follow suit. But when you interrogate, and I've spoken to the CEO of ADA as well in the recent meeting, say, look, there's no turnaround plan that has been implemented so far, none. The last 3 years I've been in the department. It has been just a draft submitted, but no implementation. Because the turnaround plan is not a turnaround plan that can turn around. It's something that we're still working on, and it has to be presented to the right to portfolio committee and the right people. Whatever that has been presented was just a concept. It was never approved, it was never budgeted for, and the MEC has already been in the process of engaging us as to what is the right model and the right strategy. Even if you agree, the MEC can agree, even if we finalize the turnaround plan ourselves, it won't be implemented until, of course, we've dealt with the primary issues, which is the governance issues first. Because you will not manage the estate in its full capacity until you have dealt with the issues of governance and ownership. We have been the issue of under expenditure. Let me clarify this. To address under expenditure, it cannot be through a silver bullet. I've realized that. We have moved from 2018-2019 from 264 million rands. 2019-2020, we tried to bring it down to 99 million rands. That was our first attempt. Our second attempt, we brought it down to 17 million rands. That's a quantum leap. We are not even trying, Honorable Ghost. It's not even a small move. It's a huge move. The committee should be putting it on the headline of Isolezo to say the department has turned around. So that gives an indication if you put it in terms of the ratio. This is below, far above how many percent from the last 3 years. It's far above 1,000% in terms of the movement. So basically what I'm saying, Chair, is that we are trying our best, and we've got a team that is working on their feet. And as I've said, there are issues that we have identified as we speak now that might cause us to spend by that prioritizing, because it's outside our control. Public works is responsible for the infrastructure. It's responsible for but we are not implemented that far. And it will be transferring to approve the transfer, because we have that of capital that can support us in the name. So irregular expenditure, Chair, we have committed to the portfolio committee that will bring down to zero, failure which we will have to, of course, negotiate some repercussions because we have made a commitment. We know the impact of under expenditure of conditional grants. It affects your DORA future allocations. It also have an impact in terms of your departmental general budgetary performance overview. Chair, the issue of irregular expenditure that has been mentioned as well by all the honourable members. Consequence management, the delay in the disciplinary processes, officials taking transfer, retiring, and so forth. There are two processes. I will explain and then give you practical example. One is that the employee will resign and the matter will be looked at as well, because some of these disciplinary processes involved, some of these irregular expenditure involves twofold. One could result to not disciplinary, threefold by the way. One could result into not disciplinary measure being applied. The second one could result into disciplinary processes, internal disciplinary processes within no criminal record. The third one will result into criminal record. But those are the three consequences as a result of irregular expenditure. So let us not assume that everything irregular will result into the application of all three simultaneously. The issue where some employees need to be pursued, even after retirement or resignation, is when the matter involves fraud and it's a criminal matter. That is pursued. Let me give you an example, Honorable Chair. One is a case number 2608-2016 involving the 4 million rand is under the Hawks. Court 220310 is sitting. The second one is case 421124 and case 3905-2017 involving 2 million rand. The official has received 8 years imprisonment. Case 2011-2017, the matter in respect of drug relief. The matter is in court again on the 220618. Case 1911-2017, the matter is involved fraudulent, and the matter is with the NPA. Case 1007-2018, the matter is in court for trial 220314. Case 0412-2019, 1.7 million. The matter involves that is related to the previous one. There is already imprisonment of one 18 years, another one 16 years, of which 6 years is suspended. And Captain Brett Sweet is the one dealing with the matters from the side of the Hawks and from the side of the Hawks. I'm raising this because these are matters in court. That's up to declare. They're not SIU matters anymore. With regard to the SIU matters, SIUs, I met SIU, we met with the MEC SIU. Their mandate is to recover funds. The recovery of the funds, if the funds are recoverable, there's no element of fraud, they don't refer the matter to NPA. But where there's an element of fraud, they refer the matter to NPA. Where element of fraud is when there's no service rendered at all, it becomes fraud. But where the service is rendered and there were some shenanigans, they will want to recover the money. In our case with the employees that have been status, they came to the conclusion that the money should be recovered because somewhere they did not apply their mind when they were implementing supply chain processes, and therefore they should repay the money. One employee that has been a case over time to say was never part of the disciplinary process among the 5. And the question now is, because he's also repaying, he's agreed to repay. The only thing that happened is that he was never disciplined. Then, as I come into the department, I said, okay, the employees, all of them that were still within the service of the state, if I'm not mistaken, how do we do with the one that was never disciplined? We need advice. I'm not a legal fundi, and if I was, I'm not in a position as an accounting officer to apply illegal principles. So the state attorney is there to do that. So the state attorney wrote to the state attorney. The state attorney wrote back and look at the matter holistically and say, look, the person is repaying the money, and therefore pursue the matter from disciplinary process will result in the same outcome with the others, and therefore the matter you will waste money and time. If I take the advice differently and implement it, you same honourable members will accuse me of wasteful expenditure against the advice of the state acting. So the state acting is there to advise us. So I'm hoping that the honourable member will appreciate. But for personal, I have said it to the portfolio committee. The matter is very strange when I look at it, but it's not my call. And if I was there, I could have looked at the matter differently. But the colleagues agreed, and that is where they find themselves today, and they should pay their money, and that is honored by all of them as we speak. Only one, which is the former HOT, is no longer in the employment. The rest are still there, if I'm not mistaken. And these are members who are doing exceptional job, quite a lot of them, I must say, and they don't have any prior cases of fraud or anything, even post that particular period. And we are watching the space, and we do suspend employees, and I will be suspending some in any event if there are issues of similar nature have been raised that requires my attention. I will do that, Chairperson, without fear or hesitation. The other issue, Chair, that we've raised is in relation to, I think we have spoken, I think I've addressed, there was the issue on page 23 by Honorable Kawula. That matter refers to ADA, if I'm not mistaken. And I think I could not get the amount on page 24 that the Honorable was referring to. Maybe you can still come back and raise that issue for us. But in a nutshell, consequence management is strictly applied in the department, Chair, I must really say. And we have brought back our Director Labour, who have been with the Department of Transport for some time. And that has been a big issue. Because in his absence, when he was transferred for some reasons unknown, and I could not find, when he was transferred to transport, because I'm told he was really stinging employees inside, and therefore employees were not happy, and therefore the previous leadership transferred to them. When he was gone, he was in the Department of Transport, things were not really moving. Even cases were not represented at hearings at some time. Of course, that is in evidence. So I had no choice but to bring him back and deal with whatever consequences, because I was told he was very tough when coming to issues of discipline. So we are improving on labor matters, and the issue might be because the law says we must deal, you can't use external people, you must always use internal people to deal with labor matters. Is the availability of staff capacity to also deal with that matter? I think Office of the Premier has come up with a solution to speed up the issues of disciplinary processes, and we hope that will also assist, because at times it falls outside your ambit, because the law says you must use another person within the civil state to facilitate the process of the disciplinary processes. And as such, we have to wait for people, and there are very few of them in the province who understand labor matters and preside over cases that we are using at the moment. The predetermined objectives, Chair. We have moved again, I must say. We've really moved, Chair. Again, on this one, we should be getting some kind of a round of applause, because we are moving from a disclaimer. We've moved from we are now achieved qualified on the predetermined objectives with only one finding. One finding, Honorable Kawula, Honorable Nkosi. Our strategy will remain the same. We are moving towards an unqualified predetermined objectives. We've built capacity in that section because there was only one guy. We've appointed, I think, how many people? 3 or 4 with an additional DD. And we've also requested Treasury to assist in technical capacity. I've made a team 2 weeks ago to also look in terms of building capacity through recruiting interns, so that information as requested by the AG is submitted on time. Because here we're talking volumes and volumes of files that must be submitted to the AG. And we're also moving towards an automation system to also improve our predetermined objectives, so that the reports that we submit are credible. We have also appointed quality assurance to look in terms of our bigger investment. In particular, Chair, our planting system, which has been plagued in the past by issues of lack of credible information. To say how many hectares have we plowed, the information was always contradicting. And that is where we were found wanting. Also, we put quality assurance on the number of projects that we have done. to say we claim projects that are completed, yet when you come on site, the projects are not completed. So we are really putting external quality assurance to make sure that we don't have projects claimed to have been completed and not completed, or services to be done, as the Honorable said, they were bogus transactions in the past, which is correct, it's true. We've seen it, we have done analysis of previous projects 20 times back, 16, 17, 18. There were projects that were never completed, yet monies were paid. Those reports are there, Chair. And we've transferred those documents to the Premier for forensic investigation. And including the one at Indumo A, that big project for the water manipulation, that we're also following up. But we are also rectifying that project we are looking at far less amount to be spent. So that was a 55 million rands project that we're looking at. But we are addressing these issues, Chair, going forward, because quality assurance was one of the issues that was lacking highly in the department, and to bring that culture, we had to get external people to oversee all these processes and over time. And the support from Treasury is also good. They also verify our own quality assurance processes as well, so that everything is above board. And we hope by the time we complete, we'll have a booklet that tells a better story of our department. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, HOD. Colleagues, I've listened to the extensive response from the HOD, and one can also pick up the sense of frustration that is there, because there's a lot of long-standing issues. However, as I said, comes with the territory. So unfortunately, HOD, you're going to have to have very broad shoulders. But I think we cannot take this any further. We've heard what has been said by the HOD. There are resolutions that we will have to take and respond to the department. I think one of the key things that we have to do is craft something around Ntingwe, because that one is, in the ICU, and it'll have to be a transversal resolution covering EdTier, agriculture, as well ADA, as well as I think Treasury, because Treasury would have to come in, I'm sure, in terms of governance or something, whatever. Chairperson of Finance Portfolio Committees, he can advise. We've asked the legal advisor to look at crafting something, and he will obviously advise us as to who this would apply to. But I don't think we can leave it to Department of Agriculture alone. They're not going to be able to resolve this matter on their own. So it's got to be widened out to the other affected departments and the entities. In terms of the other things with the vacancies, the underspending, actually, we hear what you say, and we understand your frustration with the process, but you know that the process is a process. PFMA declares this. But we have to also point out that the department is notorious for underspending on CASP and Lima Letsema. And the fact that you were given consideration by a rollover previously, which could not be spent for whatever reasons. And it gets compounded because you then have to use your equitable share, right? And then we have to ask questions about, if you're spending this equitable share of conditional grant, what has happened to what you budgeted for in the equitable share? So, it's all those concerns, and those are governance issues, which I think you will be straightening out. We can see that you've reduced your irregular expenditure and all that as well. Then the third one we have to look at is around the issue of the condonation of irregular expenditure and what the department is saying about a delay on the part of Treasury due to the lack of capacity. We'll have to craft something around that to establish whether that is in fact the situation, because Treasury also has their own views about condonation and how departments meet requirements. I think, colleagues, those are the main ones that we follow up on. Have I left anything out? Honorable Kaula?
No, thank you very much, Chair. HOT, we don't celebrate qualified audit reports. Chairperson, I just wanted to find out one last thing from the department. HOT, do you not have any officials who have gone to other departments when they have left disciplinary issues with your department? And if you do, have you reported them in those new homes where they are.
Actually, you may not be able to give us.
We can celebrate from disclaimer to qualified. Not from qualified to qualified. So let me clarify that point. But generally, the department has maintained an unqualified outcome for the last 2 years. But on performance, of course, there's that improvement. On the issue of employees who have moved to other departments, yes, they are. We will compile the list and we'll submit. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you, HOD. You'll submit the list to us and ensure that each of the departments where these people have run to, they are informed as well, because they have to then take the necessary disciplinary, continue the necessary disciplinary action. We must also tell you that COCTA has informed us that you have an official who left COCTA whilst the official was facing disciplinary action. So please just follow that up, because you as agriculture now have to continue the disciplinary process against that official. You can get the details from Proctor, or you can speak to our administrator here. I know it's adding to your headaches, but it's something you have to do, because the next time we'll ask you, right, what have you done? Cabo here can probably assist you with that resolution where it's mentioned. Okay. All right. Colleagues, are there any other matters? Oh, sorry, HOD. I know you said don't give you a hard time, but the department you're in is one which, until you sort it out, you're going to continue getting a hard time. My apologies. But thank you very much. We can release you unless, I think HOD, you'll have to remain, because Ada is still your baby. And we'll now hand over to the Agriculture Development Agency. Colleagues, here what we'll do is we'll welcome you. You can see you have been waiting patiently. We'll ask you to take an oath or affirmation to speak the truth, and then you can go into your presentation on the resolutions that Scopa sent to you. Thank you. As we carry on. Oh, sorry. Can I just say that the officials who are leaving, there is lunch available. Please, you can help yourselves there, right? Thank you. Continue. Yes, Honorable Zulu. HOD should remain, because Ada is your baby as well. It's under your stable. Apologies on that. Okay, the others can leave, but you would need to remain, okay? All right. Can we then hand over to the CEO of Ada? Thank you. You can go into your presentation. Let me just say that in terms of ADA colleagues, it's resolutions from, it's resolutions 156 up to 160, and then it's the transversal resolutions. Those will be the ones we will be dealing with. Okay, hand over to you, CEO and your team.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe before I go to the resolutions, I would like to indicate that we have some of our colleagues that have connected virtually, including our board chairperson, Mr. T.W. Mkunu, as well as the chairperson of the risk audit and risk committee, Mr. Lakikabela, and other colleagues from the management. Those have connected virtually. So I'd like to acknowledge their presence.
And let us welcome them. We are welcoming you to this hearing with Ada.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Maybe going straight to maybe before I go to the presentation, Chair, we have a bit of a predicament that would require a guidance from this meeting. At 1:30, we are due to start our audit and risk committee meeting. We have consulted with the chairperson of audit and risk committee meeting, and we are requesting that at least we release the CFO, and I will continue with this meeting and take all the relevant and necessary questions as directed.
That is fine. Hopefully, if we move briskly, we should be near total.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. We'll go on to the resolutions. Chair, I'm not sure whether you indicated that we need to start from 154 or forward, or we need to start from 156.
It's 156. Sorry, 154 because of the issue of continuity.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Our response to that, Chair, was that I'll just go to our response because our assumption is that the honourable members have gone through the document. The response in terms of the debt, Chairperson, is that it is historical and it relates to water provision. We have been experiencing quite.
Share your screen. Everyone is logged on to Teams.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Oh, yes, okay, I can. No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think I'm not sure whether I'm okay. I'm now visible. Thank you. I was just
your presentation.
Chair, we did not prepare a presentation because the report that we have it was combined to the very same report from the department. As you have indicated that you are a child of the department, Chair. So the report is tied to that. It starts from page 20, Chair, for ease reference. Okay, I'll go on, Chair. The problems relating to water provision for farmers is that it was due to water challenges. And on top of that, we have had a very bad culture of non-payment, wherein we have attempted numerous times to cut off services to those service providers that were not servicing their debt. And, you know, the challenge with this, Chair, is that previously we've had a scenario where members of the farmers at Tumchindi were not paying their debt, and we applied for this debt to be scrapped. And for us, it was approved previously. And for me, at a personal level, I think it created a precedence because now you have a scenario where the very same farmers that are adequately getting water and they've got good yields and good crop production, but they are not really paying. And now we have embarked on various processes to remedy the situation. One of it, we acknowledge that we are working on old dilapidated infrastructure, but the provision of water is sitting at around 60%, which means that they are getting water and they are getting good yields. We just need to ensure that we become more aggressive in terms of our debt collection. Another issue that they've argued on is around the flat rate, wherein they were saying the amount of water that we use is not the same across all the farmers at Umkindi. It's a matter that we are currently investigating the feasibility of and looking at the options thereafter. Right now, we are enforcing the rate collection, the debt collection, wherein we have written several letters to these farmers. And since then, Chair, I must indicate that there has been quite a remarkable improvement of it, but it's still not sufficient, because if we were to look at the amount of money that we spent at Umchindi vis-a-vis our collection rate or ratio, it's still very, very low, and we are looking at various options, including hiring a debt collector to collect the debt that is owed by these farmers. And another matter that we have not included here, which also compound the problems, is around illegal connections, where you'll find that farmer X will collude with farmer B, and they will then put in a pipe illegally. You'll find that the water that you are providing, it also goes to those farmers that are illegally connected. We've picked up that some of our employees were involved in that, and we are looking at tightening up processes, including disciplinary processes where there's been whistleblowing around this matter of illegal connection. Sorry. So, Chair, in terms of resolution 154 of 2021, this is where we stand as ADA on the matter. The resolution 155, amalgamation of entities around Intingoti. Chair, I'm not going to go into details on this because HOD Bande has elaborated on this and it has been ventilated, unless there are areas wherein the honourable members they feel that I need to give clarity to.
No, let's leave that because I think we will discuss that.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The other one, Chair, Resolution 156, it talks about the composition of the Board of Trustees. Chair, this was indeed an issue previously, but this has since been resolved, and you notice that in our introduction we did indicate that we have the board chairperson as well as the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee. In essence, it means that the board is now properly constituted and they are exercising their fiduciary responsibility and overseeing all the governance matters. And part of that responsibility is for them to be attending such meetings as this one, so that they can be familiar with all the issues that are at hand. Going further, Chair, on Resolution 157, this one, Chair, talks to late submission of annual financial statements. We were late by 24 hours in the submission of the financial statements. Our response to this is that we have put in a very clear system in place to ensure that we don't miss the dates that are supposed to be complied with. And over and above that, we went further than that. The official that was responsible for the late submission of these financial statements was reprimanded and given a notice to this effect. So we consider the matter. We consider that the matter has been adequately dealt with in terms of the consequence management of that. Looking at Resolution 158, Chair, around irregular expenditure, which is now is sitting at a cumulative balance of 124 million. Our response, Chair, was that in terms of the new matters, it was around the compliance with the new SCM regulations. We had a regulation that talks to local content. If you had approved a bid wherein local content was not adequately dealt with, more especially in terms of steel, that in terms of the of Treasury regulation is calculated and deemed as irregular expenditure. All the processes were followed, but when we were calculating the points for local content, we did not apply due care to ensure that the service provider appointed is sourcing the steel from the local suppliers, and hence we were penalized. It was regarded as an irregular expenditure. We have since resolved that. We request condonation from Treasury, but over and above that, we have also conducted workshops to familiarize our SCM officials on how the local content works. Over and above that, Chair, to deal with all the irregular expenditure that is cumulative over years, we now have a loss control committee that has prepared, done preliminary investigations and prepare a report on this matter. We are anticipating that in our next board meeting, we'll present these matters for the board to approve them, then send it to provincial treasury for finalization. Then it would ensure that we clear our historical irregular expenditure. The other matter, Chair, that resulted in irregular expenditure was around the composition of our committees. There was an insistence, we argued this with Treasury, with Auditor General, because they were arguing that the officials that were sitting in our bid education committee were not senior enough. We eventually succumbed, and we have since reconstituted the committees. We now have senior members. Senior members means that any employee or official that is from level 13 and above, because previously, because of the nature of our organization, we have deputy managers that were sitting at that level, and they really disputed that, but we have since corrected that matter as well, Chairperson. Maybe in moving to the next resolution, Chair, Resolution 159 of 2021 regarding the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. In terms of this matter, we did pick it up, Chairperson, that there was wasteful and fruitless expenditure in terms of late submission of, in terms of late payments. Telkom, when you pay them late, municipalities, when you pay them late, the Department of Labor and SARS, they normally charge penalties if you pay them later. And this amount of 42,000 and 58,000 respectively, it was as a result of that particular process. The investigation in terms of this fruitful and wasteful expenditure has been completed, and it will form part of what will then be submitted to the board for them to approve it and then implement it accordingly. But as part of the remedial action, Chair, we've had an engagement with Eskom just to avoid this happening previously. We have had a scenario where Eskom would email invoices to officials that are not designated to deal with invoices. But the ones that are designated to deal with invoices, they will get those invoices late. And as a result of that, they were not aware. And as such, they will impose penalties. And what has been also a matter of argument is that anything that is older than 7 days in terms of ESCOM and municipalities, they penalize us. When in government, we were working on around a 30-day payment cycle. So these are some of the arguments that have been dealing with those that are entrusted with the responsibility from these entities. And we are finding each other. And now the invoices are sent directly to finance manager, who is then entrusted with ensuring that these are dealt with within 7 days as per their requirement. The other one is on Resolution 160 of 2021, wherein it deals with the investigations in terms of salary discrepancies, Chair. There we had an issue where we discovered serious salary anomalies wherein people within the very same category or level, but they had serious salary discrepancies, and we had to identify what is the cause of it and deal with the remedial action and who in fact authorized those increases that were there. Since then, we've had a scenario where this has been where this was investigated, and the official consent, who was from HR, unfortunately resigned before this matter was persuaded. In fact, sorry, my apologies. She did not resign, but we did not renew the contract, and she took us to CCMA. And at CCMA, it was agreed that this matter will then be settled. But internally, all those salary discrepancies were subsequently revised and then corrected because they were illegal. We had to solicit a legal opinion around this, and it was discovered that these were illegal adjustments which constituted an element of criminality around it. But the matter has been resolved, and going forward, anything that has to do with salary adjustments on the system, it's a matter that has to be taken up with the accounting officer as well as the executive authority in terms of authorizing that, because it has got huge financial implications. The other one, Chair, that we dealt with was the disappearance of peanut butter machine for the beneficiary, wherein it was stolen from Cocta offices in Echozini. It was a huge machine, which is almost the size of a small room, which was taken by one of those huge horse and trailer trucks. We concluded the investigation was concluded, and we have opened a case of investigation. A case of criminal investigation, coupled with the forensic in assisting the police at Chozini. We have had resistance from Echozini police station in terms of concluding this matter, despite the fact that we have provided information from our forensic auditors to assist them with this. We've since escalated the matter to the provincial commissioner for them to intervene, because each time we request update on this matter, we are not getting any joy around it. We must also indicate, Chair, that it could be that there is just resistance or a potential collusion with the perpetrators who are believed to be residing within Echozini, or it could be just a case of the local police station not having enough capacity to deal with this, despite the fact that we prepared everything for them to pursue this and ensure that the perpetrators concerned are criminally charged. Chair, this goes up to page 28. And then the other one, which was transversal, was the filling of a critical post, which is not really applicable to us as ADA. We don't have any posts that are critical. Whenever we have posts, we normally fill them, even though the challenge is that we fill them on short-term basis because we are still all on contract until this matter is resolved by the Office of the Premier, as well as the department in terms of converting those staff into permanence, because most of them have been on contract since the establishment of ADA. The other resolution that is applicable to us was around the monitoring of compliance and legal prescriptions relating to the prohibition of officials doing business with the state. Currently, as ADA, we do check this. We don't have employees that are conducting business with the state that are employed by ADA. We normally check the CSD report quite often whenever we do we do the evaluation. We have even it's even though it's not here, but we normally extracted the evidence that we do check this from time to time to check whether the officials are in the employ of the state. That will be all, Chair, from our side, and we are happy to take questions and matters of clarity on what has been presented.
Thanks, thanks, CEO. Colleagues, I hand over to you. There are some issues that have been sorted out. For example, the board they are now compliant. The board has been appointed. The issue of the late submission of the annual financial statements has been explained and measures put in place to sort that out. The irregular expenditure, the reasons around it, there has been an explanation provided, but it's up to you if you wish to follow up on that. The fruitless and wasteful expenditure, well, on that one, of course, I'm sure you will see. And the peanut butter machine, you know, sounds, when you say it sounds so nice. It's a 3-point-somewhat million machine. So it's not small. And it's really expensive because it appears that huge collusion between people injured in that area who participated in this. They are now refusing to give evidence, etc., etc. So I'm not certain how we actually address that one, but it really is criminal. So colleagues, let me hand over to you. And if there are any colleagues on the virtual platform, we'll take your hands as well. Did I see the hand of Honorable Nkosi? Yes, okay.
The first one is in relation to the result of choosing to pay. I'm very, very happy that you are coming up with the plan of getting the debt collector, but you did not indicate the timeline as to when. Would want to tell you that those farmers, although they are such in a profitable area, have not been paid for water. Those canals that are running there and whatever, and have been not paid, go and ask from the entity that you match with. They will tell you. That's the first question. The second question is in relation to the irregular expenditure arising out of the local content. I can't remember when did the AG flesh out this thing of local content. But I'm hearing that you have been caught napping as far as that is concerned. And then you have just decided to workshop the officials responsible for that particular process of procurement. I wonder why they were not workshopped long time ago. Because my own understanding has been a long, if it is not 4 years, it could be 3 years, when we have been red-carded around the issues of local content. The third area that I'm having a problem with is in relation to the salary anomalies. Yeah, no, I like that one. And there's something that I didn't hear, that people were overpaid. In government, if you get overpaid, there is a recovery of that particular overpayment. I'm not hearing that part on your side. I was listening attentively some piece, but I've not heard. I know that you have corrected them, but you left out the most important thing where people benefited and duly so, and then you have not recovered that particular money. You have been in the government yourself, and you know where were you, and then you know that that particular principle applies in government. The last one is on the peanut butter machine. I didn't hear whether the machine has come back or not. And I'm hearing, hey, it's such a big thing. You know, we need the horse and trailer to transport that thing. But I didn't hear. I was trying to listen attentively as to whether the machine is back now or not. I didn't hear that. I'm very, very happy about the stance we have taken of ensuring that you reported the case to the police of Jose. And I would want to advise you that that police station is as good as non-existent. We are coming from the visit of that particular police station, and a lot of cases are being undermined by the police station itself. But please put pressure on the SAPS at a provincial level so that they deal with that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi. I think he has covered it in relation to that, and you have covered the main issues. CEO, if you want to respond, please do so. And we will also, what Honorable Nkosi has outlined, will become follow-up resolutions from the committee as well.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with the difficult ones. The last one that Honorable Nkosi spoke about, the peanut butter machine. See, Chair, it's a very disturbing one because you have a machine that is as big as almost the size of a room that disappears from Jozini to wherever it went to. One, it disappeared from Copter offices in Jozini where it was kept. When you look at the records and the cameras and whatever, because a big truck came at night to take it from Copter offices. Now the processes were done to open the cases and what have you. And if you were to look in terms of our normal transport system, if you have an abnormal load like you will have a vehicle that would be escorting it as an abnormal load. Now, and this thing, you know, when you look at it, it was reported to us 3 days after the incident had taken place, you know, to say this has happened. So you can see that there are red flags everywhere. And when we then inquired, we were not getting any joy from officials from Copter where it was kept. And also there are suspicions that there were even officials that were involved in these projects that may have been part of this exercise of stealing this. Now, with that in mind, we then requested that because we have reported the matter and we are not getting any joy from the police, from the police, we then appointed forensic investigators so that we can have a forensic assisted investigation to ensure that this is expedited. The report was done and everything, and now we discovered that the very same investigators, our forensic investigators, they would get the leads, good leads, to say this is where it is. And this is how it went, from people that wanted to be anonymous, but they were pointing us to a right direction as to where do you go. When we went to those people, they would request us to come with a police, because forensic investigator, they can only response, or if there is a police who is authorized then to take normal statements and whatever. And this is where we've been getting frustrated, up to a point of raising the matter with the station commander without any joy, and then we had to write to the provincial commissioner. After that, they made one contact to us, and after that, they disappeared. So, in short, this peanut butter machine has not yet been recovered. But in a province like KZN, I don't believe it can be that difficult to really find and track a machine of this magnitude unless there is resistance from people concerned, including the police from KwaZulu, because they are not assisting us in terms of this. And immediately after this, Chair, I would certainly write a follow-up letter to say we are not getting any assistance in terms of this matter. And if you look at it, it's a huge expenditure for it just to disappear, because this was designed to empower a particular community, a particular project around KwaZulu, of which we have not yet achieved because of this. Moving on to the other one, Chair, it was around the salary anomalies, overpaid and underpaid. We had those that were underpaid and those that were overpaid. What we have done as part of this exercise, we have normalized those that were underpaid. We normalized this. Those that were overpaid, we have also ensured that we normalize it. What we have done now is to do the calculation process and indicate how much is owed to by each person, and we are promising that in our next Scopa meeting we'll provide that information as to how we've concluded the matter on this one, in terms of raising debt where it was necessary, and where we were owing them, how we have balanced that out. The other one is around the local content, Chair. I think you are correct when you say this is historical in terms of our officials dealing with this. What has happened previously in terms of this treasury practice note? Our own officials, maybe across all government departments, you'll find that they have not been dealing aggressively with the issue of local content. The reason why they have not been dealing with aggressively, it's because when it's identified, you identified it, but there was no consequence around it, and it was one of those that it was a non-compliance issue. Then Treasury changed, I think 2 years ago, and indicated that in practice note that it's no longer now a non-compliance issue, it's an irregular issue, to ensure that we aggressively promote local content. Remember, the issue of local content is not only about steel, because it's still in our context, but in others it could be around manufacturing, clothing and textile, wherein you'll find that there is a lot of importation of goods from other countries instead of sourcing internally and stimulate local content. So in terms of that, Chair, on our side, there was an element that we only workshop those officials concerned, And the Loss Control Committee meeting and the meeting that was investigating this, they have requested that there has to be a consequence management on the part of the official concerned. And what you will see in our this as it goes to the board for ratification would ensure that there is proper consequence management in terms of this, and including maybe a warning, so that we also contribute to what the government is trying to achieve in terms of intensifying local content, because local content is about transformation, is about ensuring that local manufacturers are benefiting out of this exercise. The debt collection, Chair, we have finalized the terms of reference around the debt collection. We are anticipating that we will go out on tender to appoint an entity that is going to look at debt collection. What we are looking at here, instead of spending money on this debt collection, we are looking at debt collection where this will be undertaken on risk basis, wherein we look at how can we have a debt collector wherein a certain percentage of what has been collected will then be part of the compensation instead of us paying for that debt collection, because someone may claim that I've written letters, I've made so many number of calls, but if there's no debt, we can't pay that person. If there's no collection realized, we can't pay that person. So we're looking at doing this on risk basis so that it is beneficial to both parties, and they are then aggressive in terms of how they intend to collect their debt. Otherwise, we'll have a scenario where we spend money, but the debt is not collected from those defaulting farmers, Chair. I hope I've responded to all the matters. In case there isn't that I've not responded to, I'm happy to clarify it further, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I think you have responded to colleagues. There are some resolutions to follow up on. I'm glad that Honourable raised the issue of local content, because this one is something that we've been picking up and moving quite aggressively on. We'd like that eliminated, but also in the interest of transformation, economic transformation, etc. It's something that, it's a legal way of empowering people. But I think otherwise the issues have been addressed. Colleagues, are we comfortable? Okay, then we'd like to thank Ada very much. Colleagues on the virtual platform, thank you for attending as well. And we can close this hearing with Ada. A reminder that there is available, please help yourselves. Colleagues, Department of Arts and Culture here, and I think they will not be long. There are 4 resolutions, and the transversals are light. Can we proceed with them and then conclude for the day? Is that all right? Okay. Anybody who wants to go and eat can go out and grab a bite if you wish. All right. Okay. Then we can call in arts and culture. commence the hearing with the arts and culture. And thank you very much. We know that you had to wait a bit, but we've been having some technical glitches. So at the outset, we'll tell you that please log on to Teams. I think you've got the link for this meeting. If you want to share your presentation or something, then we can get it on the screen. I'm sure a link would have been sent to you. Just check your emails. Yes, we do have your presentation, but as you are speaking, you might want to just put it on so that we can see it. Otherwise, I think our admin will do it. Okay, but nevertheless, everybody has a copy of the presentation. It's fine. We've received it. Okay, so HOD and your team, let us welcome you to this hearing with the Department of Arts and Culture. Colleagues, we've noted the apology from the MEC, Honorable Mavumbela. She did communicate with us. There's a MINMEC meeting that she's attending. So she did communicate her apology. HOD, we'll start by asking you and your team to take the oath of affirmation to speak the truth, and then we'll go into your presentation. The presentation covers basically resolutions 282 to 28 to resolution 289, which are specific resolutions to the department, and then 290 to 92 or 93 are the transversals. Okay, you have responded to all of them, so it's fine. Kabo, do you want to flag their presentation? Or they don't have a MS Teams link. Okay, so Kabo will flag your presentation. Okay. All right, then let's hand over to you. Do the oath of affirmation first, and then we'll go into the presentation.
Chair of Scopa. Chair. Chair.
He walked to the river with a large bucket to collect water.
Thank you. Let me, before the HOD commences and the team, let me welcome the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee who is with us on the virtual platform, as well as other members. Also present on the virtual platform are some members of Scopa, I think two of them, and we have the Office of the Auditor General who is with us as well on the virtual platform. So we have a good representation all around. Over to you, HOD.
Chair.
See within the law, the single person able to
to put them on teams and use for this uniform.
This is what we make of services. We are really not to say that the account of this and final reports, internal investigation, and how performing study, and about the analysis, and then reports are prepared to the one. And in terms of this, who was that? Because in words, and then in the next page, I see what is it about the somehow of forming the issue of the president, state around why I would say side a resolution, but now we don't see progress. There is
They put him on teams. Because if he's on teams, then we can do what Andrea did. Put the mic on, then he's clear. People are complaining they can't hear.
Yeah, she has said for 9,000 but I think that was so good and that you take this for the really what is the direction of construction, the issue of
He's not getting teams. His mic is not on. They must send his mic on. His team is mic. Not the this mic. He hasn't got a laptop.
That was overpayment of the amount of 3,020,521 that was made and approved without the signature of the principal agent. Now, Honorable Chair, I then move to number 5, slide 5. Again, there we are dealing with the overpayment on Tugu project. We are then saying, Honorable Chair, on that one. Furthermore, the accounting officer has opened a case of alleged forgery of the signature pending on payment number 10, amounting to 4,030,027 rand 4 cents. Chairperson, this one is the one where, just to give a short background on it, there was a payment voucher signed by everyone, including the principal agent, that came to the department, went to the director, went to CFO, it came to me, it was signed off. It had all the signatures. Safe to say that when we then engaged later on having paid, in fact, we did not discover it, it was discovered by AG. Then the AG said, if we look at us and we look at this payment, in terms of the payment, it's 4 million, but the amount that you should have paid is 2 million and some odd. Then the principal agent said, I see that there is a signature here, but it's forged, it's not my signature. So it's an issue of forgery. But the principal agent went on to say, I had seen the voucher number 10, the payment number 10. I rejected it. I said, the work that we have done as a contractor is not of the value of 4 million, but of the value of 2.5. So I rejected it. The one that was supposed to have been signed off is that of 2.5. It disappeared somewhere. On the desk, the one that came in was the one for 4 million. Hence, the issue then on this one of consequence management becomes difficult because it's the issue of fraud and forgery that is being investigated. But the next bullet point deals with exactly that. It then says the accounting officer then prepared an affidavit, reported the case, Kulub Street, of the statement that I gave to the police was that it's an attempted forgery or forgery because we have not lost any money as yet. There is a possibility that we could lose money, but we have not lost any money. So the case was registered, is case number 371/1/2022. On the 17th of February 2022, I received a notification on my phone that was saying that the matter has now been referred to senior prosecutor for a decision of that attempted fraud or fraud. The next page, slide number 6, we still deal with issues of overpayment because there is a number of them. The other progress that the SAPS investigation, now in terms of that 4 million that I was talking about, if you see there are a list of interested parties that I, as the accounting officer, submitted through the affidavit to the SAPS to say the parties of interest are 4 on the matter. It is ISU Engineering Pty Ltd, because at the time when the project started and the ISU was managing the project, because we had not yet appointed the officials to service infrastructure. So they were appointed in terms of DPSA rates, which means the director of the company was paid the rates of a position of a director of the department assisting the HOD. The other person from the company was paid the rates of a DD. So therefore they become a company of interest. Then T2 Design Lab, they become a company of interest simply because they are the consultants responsible for the project. I think they were appointed, these consultants, prior to my arrival. They were appointed, we inherited them. I'm not suggesting that there's something wrong with that, but it's a consultant that was appointed. I can't remember when, whether it was 2010 when they were appointed for this to deal with these matters. Then there is also a Tegwini Civils, JV, Hesham, and M Contractors. They are also an interested party there because the money that was paid went into their account because they are the contractors. The person that signed off in the first instance, in terms of the 4 million, was a director of ISU Engineering in her capacity as the director in the Department of Arts and Culture. Then the other one, D, is the Department of Arts and Culture itself, because there might have been an issue of colluding between the HOD, the company, and whoever who is working within arts and culture that must be investigated. So we're waiting for that process. So therefore, the issue of consequence management there can only come when there's evidence that says it's HOD and this person and that person who colluded to try and defraud the department. And the next page, Honorable Chair, deals with 282, but it's number 3, which talks to the outcomes of the investigation related to Bilanyoni. You will remember the story, honorable members. I'm not going to read that as is where an amount of about 500,000 was not recovered. And we've discovered that there are 2 staff members who failed to perform their duties. The Director Legal Services, and then the other person was Director SCM. Both of them have left the department. I will then cover the point as to where they are, whether we can still pursue them later on. Then, Honorable Chair, I move to the addition that what we have done since we have submitted the report. We are then saying, as the Department of Arts and Culture, we have discovered that the former Director Legal Services is now in the employ of the state. And he is employed by the Department of Trade and Industry. And the intention, Honorable Chair, is to present the accounting officer of the Department of Trade and Industry with all the documents so that they pursue the disciplinary process against the employee because she is working for the state. But the former director, SCM, when other investigations about her matric certificate and so on were being persuaded, he resigned. And we have also checked, he is not employed anywhere. So therefore, we are unable then to do what we are doing to the Director Legal Services to him. The next page, Honorable Chair, still with 283, we are there then dealing with the issue of the turnaround strategy that has to ensure that the budget allocated for conditional grant will be spent by end of 2021-22 financial year, and we attached it as Annexure 1. The truth of the matter, Honorable Chair, we still are going to be coming to this committee because as things stands, that, Chair, I said I'll tell the truth, as things stands, I don't see the department spending all its conditional grant. The chronic problem, as Honorable Nkosi will say, in the Department of Arts and Culture, of the conditional grant not being spent, I think it's still going to be haunting us come the end of the current financial year, given that all that we discussed in the strategy, which I'm not going to read, because we had said as the Department of Arts and Culture, we need help. And then we were given 5 officials, if not 6, from Provincial Treasury, and only 2 from Arts and Culture to assist us to speed up the process. Amongst the things that we were supposed to do, assisted by Provincial Treasury, was to create work streams, one dealing with the staff, other dealing with the infrastructure and so on. But that has not kicked in. And some of the projects for infrastructure are dependent on the submission by the requesting line chief directorate. In this case, the line chief directorate is that of library, archives, and museums. And that chief directorate is leaderless. There is no chief director responsible for library, archives, and museums. There is also no director responsible for library, archives, and museums. And all the submissions that we have been doing since 18 months, unfortunately, they've been rejected that we cannot fill those posts until the merger of the 2 departments. That is the Department of Sports, Sports and Recreation, and Arts and Culture. The only post out of about 53 posts that we have submitted, only 8 has been approved. And those 8 were only approved as a result of a meeting that was held on the 31st of December 2021 between the Premier, the MEC, and myself. And then we then got a response that says only 8, that including the one for the director infrastructure, but the one for the chief director was not part of that. So when you start the process and you get a response in January, 2nd week, you have a lead time of about 2 months. By the time we end the financial year, it will, by then when we are filling those posts. So therefore, simply because of those particular issues. So we are troubled in as far as that is concerned. But we are also reporting that since Scopa, the department, as I've said earlier on, that paragraph deals with what we have requested from Provincial Treasury. But the fact of the matter is that only about 5 or 10% of what we had agreed upon, that is on the turnaround strategy, that has been implemented. So therefore, you've got a good strategy on paper, but the implementation has not happened. So the strategy is there. We have shared it with the members. And in the last part of that, we are talking about that the reprioritization of infrastructure projects was done. There were challenges with contractors appointed for 3 projects, hence the delays in terms of that. Honorable Chair, one of the things that we also did, that we requested from the National Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, was to say some of these libraries that we are responsible for have no water. And they gave us permission to do ama boreholes. Now, we know that if we do, we are doomed, and if we don't, we are doomed. AG will then come and say, but you have handed over Bilanyoni Library to a municipality. But at the same time, you are spending money on boreholes. How then are you doing that? Because that library is no longer your library. Honorable Singh of the DA will then also say, but the library that you have done, that is fairly new, has water and has electricity, but the old one do not have. The issue there is that the policy decisions that were taken at the time are different. The first one was saying the electricity and water is a function that the municipality that is receiving is going to deal with. On the other hand, we've seen now as we go forward that it doesn't help. We're now including the issues of water and electricity. Because if you have a library that is complete but is not working because of water, in terms of the audit, it's incomplete. I move, Honorable Chair, to number 10, which deals with 284. Again, there we are reporting that the annual performance plan had already been finalized at a time of the audit. The department has amended the SOPs so that the gaps identified in the audit are addressed. The TIDs in the 2022-23 financial year have been reviewed accordingly. The department has, in addition, conducted a midterm review on 27 September 2021 in order to review the portfolio of evidence and reporting in order to address the gaps. The session we committed that we'll do, it happened on the 25th of January 2023. A clean audit committee has also been established, chaired by the director next to me on my left, to focus on issues of clean audit. But Chair, one of the things that I need to highlight is that when there was a finding that talks to our APP target not being smart, you would know, honorable members, that AG will come when we are already into the financial year, when the new APP had already been passed. So therefore, we are faced with the same APP targets because we had already started the financial year and the legislature had already passed the APP target. No MEC, no HOD can change the APP targets without the approval of the legislature, because that is how we are monitored as department. So we might have that challenge, Honorable Chair, for the financial year under review that says it had already been approved, the APP targets that might be deemed not to be smart. But we then said, Honorable Chair, in order to mitigate for that, let's review our operational plans and our SOPs so that the detail around what was missing in the APP is covered there. Then, Honorable Member, I move to number 11, which deals with Resolution 286, the investigation of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 1.4 million revealed that between September and November 2019, the department had already appointed Brilliantel Solutions and they were providing the internet services. This, honorable members, is the one that talks to Brilliantel being there. On the other hand, Telecom, and therefore paying for Brilliantel, Galas Kokelu Telecom, and therefore it talks to that interchange between the two. Now, we are also saying that Telecom could not remove their infrastructure from the libraries without the cancellation by the department. There was an issue there. And then we are then saying when Telecom finally did receive the cancellation in August 2019, the library officials continued to use the 3G cards before Telecom collected them, although there was internet from Brilliantel. The investigation then, which was done, recommended consequence management be applied to the Director Library Services for failing to discharge her duties as the responsibility manager. Now, we then started the process. As you know, Honorable Chair, when you are disciplining a person, you give the person an opportunity. The issue around this director was not only about this one. It was also, if you remember, there was an issue about suspected collusion between the departmental officials and the certain service providers at library services. And on the day we gave her those questions, the following day we received a resignation. We have also conducted an investigation on our own, Honorable Chair, to check if she is in the employ of the state. She is not in the employ of the state. She is employed by a particular NGO. We are then, Honorable Chair, reporting that the red one, the department has established that the former director, Library Services, is no longer, as I've said earlier on, and is not in the employ of the state. I then move to 13, Honorable Chair, number 1 of 13, that talks to progress made in the determination of testing of irregular expenditure. Our response is that the determination test for irregular expenditure incurred in 2020-2021 financial year and prior years have been conducted by the department and submitted to Provincial Treasury for condonation. Now, Provincial Treasury refused to condone certain areas, which I'll cover on the next page. And those areas in the main, we have submitted everything to Treasury. but one. That is consequence management. Now, I know the issue of consequence management, that if it's not done, ultimately the accounting officer can be served with a certificate. But here I will present to the committee our issue in relation to this, and where an intervention can be made, then it can be made, because they gave their reasons at Provincial Treasury as to why they are not condoning that spending. So I will deal with that later on. Now, we are saying then in red, in slide number 14, the CFO also looked at other options. I must say, Honorable Chair, I'm not comfortable with this option. The option that says irregular expenditure frameworks under paragraph 62, 63, and 64 states that the accounting officer, which then will be myself, what is not good about this clause, it makes one the referee and the player chair, and I would not want to exercise that option. Hence, we request the intervention and the assistance of this committee when I explain what the issues are. But what is also good about that, about those paragraphs, Honorable Chair, it says the accounting officer can condone after the accounting officer is certified himself, but it goes on to say, including that consequence management has been instituted. And in these matters, it has not. So that's what we've explained to the committee and why it is difficult to implement it, because circumstances differ. Now, Honorable Chair, I go to the next slide, which will zoom into these issues that I was talking about. We are saying, Honorable Chair, value for money was achieved. However, with regards to consequence management, the following issues per category are meganji. Number one, all SCM and compliance matters, former SCM director no longer with the public service. Now, the findings that we had, we reported to Provincial Treasury, Honorable Chair, about everything. But there is a Mr. Ngobo, who was supposed to be disciplined in terms of consequence management, resigned, went away, and is not in the employ of the state. So therefore, I cannot institute a disciplinary or consequence management to someone who is not in the employ. Because of that, Provincial Treasury refused to condone the amount involved there. That is number one. Number two, infrastructure. Two officials who were responsible for infrastructure were given letters of caution. So at least that one, it has letters of caution that were given to them. Then the next one is library books. Former library director, when I was beginning to institute the process of consequence management, she submitted a letter of resignation within 24 hours. So therefore, there is no one that I can come and make accountable in terms of that particular one. And the Treasury received everything, but did not receive consequence management, and they turned it down. The composition of BIC, Honorable Chair. Here, the bone of contention is that out of our own goodwill, as the department, we appointed Mr. Hatebe, who was employed in the Department of Arts and Culture as an SCM practitioner. His position was that of Director Infrastructure. Director SCM. Then at the time, Honorable Chair, we know that there was a long time when the department had no CFO, because the CFO had issues with the department, Ms. Thomas. Now, we then appointed the SCM practitioner to act as the CFO. Then when we reported and when we were audited, and then AG said you can't have one person acting as CFO, but also being an SCM specialist. Yes, we understand that this person, his substantive post is that of the of SCM, but you can't have it both. Now, Honorable Chair, the question then is that the bids that were passed during that time then are irregular. Then the question then is that before we condone, discipline someone, who is to be disciplined? Because this person was appointed, rightly so, we never realized that AG will not accept that because this person is a practitioner, but at the same time got an opportunity to act, and therefore they rejected the bid, which we accept that the process was irregular. But now, when we try and condone it, we now have a problem because Treasury wants us to discipline someone. And in my view, there is no one to be disciplined. Unless it's me, Honorable Chair, because that's how these things happen. Then, Honorable Chair, I move to the next item because I think all that I've said covered all those paragraphs except for the irregular appointments of architects. The former HOD, there was an irregular issue, is now working for non-government municipality, not in the employ of the state. Therefore, I have no way to call the former HOD to say you have to answer. And again, that one was not condoned because of that. And that's why we are saying then at the bottom, all the above were not condoned because of one issue, consequence management. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I move to the next page. 18 deals with the outcomes, findings, and recommendations in terms of investigation relating to irregular expenditure. We're then reporting that number 2, all investigations for 2021 financial year and priors have been concluded. Consequent management has been implemented by the department to some officials, which were still in the employ of the department. No recoveries were made on any of the transactions, particularly because services were rendered and there was no value for money. There was value for money through process money. No processes were not followed, which made these things irregular. But then they were not condoned due to the issue addressed earlier on. Slide number 17 deals with other remedial actions. We have now, which I dealt with it earlier on, reviewed our standard operating procedures, reviewed our policies, changed the way in which the procurement of library books will be processed. You would know, honorable members, we were in the newspapers around the issue of the panel of library books, where an honorable member was saying we must be taken to ICU. We never followed procedure. The evidence and the submission by provincial treasury is contrary to that. We've got letters from provincial treasury that the Department of Arts and Culture followed all the necessary processes that were supposed to be followed. Even the process that is called the tribunal process, with 8 companies complaining, was rejected by the tribunals. But on the other hand, there's that thing that says we did not follow processes. But on that, I wish to report to members that we have done. Now we are going to have a panel now, honorable members, that will be able to assist us in terms of procuring the books. We are not going to have this long process. Next slide, honorable members, is the one also that deals with other things that we have done. The department would like to apologize again for the comment submitted on the original submission on 31 January around this, because it is not written properly, as it looks like there was a typo on the response. The response should have read as follows: the unspent amount of 15,203,000 for conditional grant was rolled over to 2021-2022. The rollover amount approved for library conditional grant has been spent, except for an amount allocated to Tugutugu. There has been challenges with this project, and the contractor has been put on terms. Now, Tugutugu, Chairperson, is a project that seems to haunt the Department of Arts and Culture. But I can safely say to honorable members, we have given the contractor up to Friday. And what it means, because we've issued warnings to the contractor, there is a possibility that we terminate or we remove the contractor on site. There are cost implications, but the risk of that, when we've done the calculations in terms of the current budget, might be in the region of 8,000 Rand if we were to terminate the contractor, given all other issues and amounts that we have to recover. Remembering that there's an amount of about 2.4 million that is still sitting with us as a retention that we have not paid the contractor, but we'll have to follow the JBCC processes. We might come to the conclusion of terminating the contractor on Friday if all that the portfolio committee went the Portfolio Committee of Arts and Culture went to view, and we said we put the contractor on terms, has not been done. We follow JPCC, but it will further delay the contract because it would mean that we need to bring another contractor on site. So I thought I should take this committee into confidence in as far as that is concerned. Then we are then saying, Honorable Chair, progress in submission to Scopa. Unfortunately, whilst the department was implementing the turnaround strategy, National Treasury has now also issued a circular to put other issues at abeyance, but that's not an excuse that we can bring to this committee. The letter from Provincial Treasury starts from the 16th of February from the National Treasury that we can't do business. Government is actually on recess because the only thing that you can procure now, any department in any province, even national, is anything that is less than 30,000. So we are faced, for instance, with the issues like the Human Rights Day that we were supposed to host, that is a budget not being hosted, and therefore we underspend on those issues. We are faced with the 29th of March, where we're supposed to launch the IKS Act. It cannot happen because of the circular and the directive coming from the Department of National Treasury that you can't do any procurement since from the 16th coming forward. Honorable Chair, I move to 19. We are saying that in terms of that, we are requesting the members to look into the report that was submitted as part of the departmental response rather than to then go through that. Number 20, slide 20, we are dealing here, Honorable Chair, with resolution 29. I think it's a transversal resolution that deals with the filling of critical vacancies. I think the summary, Honorable Chair, is that there are no posts for the past 18 months that we have been able to fill, and the OTP have said that no post will be filled in the two departments. We were lucky to have 8, but they were approved 2 months ago. So therefore, we've got huge underspending in relation to compensation of employees. So I will leave it at that, Honorable Chair, because it's beyond the control of the department. Then, Honorable Chair, I move to 21, resolution 291. So what have we done in terms of dealing with the issues that were raised in terms of compliance with HR matters? Various circulars have been issued. We've also resubmitted our compliance submissions. Furthermore, for instance, with regards to performance agreements, officials that might have failed to submit will forfeit potential benefits due to late submissions. And we are also talking about corrective measures going forward, that if the officials don't submit, we follow the disciplinary route. And we are then saying SMS members within the Department of Arts and Culture have complied 100% in terms of financial disclosures, as well as verification of qualifications. Furthermore, the verification of qualification, now, when we employ, Honorable Chair, abazosebenza ku-EPWP nama interns, we now do verification. We are now rejecting those that have criminal records that they have not disclosed. So that exercise is now being done within the department. Slide number 22, it also deals with officials doing business with the state. We're saying there are no officials within the department that have been identified to be doing business with the state. Honorable Chair, that then brings us to the conclusion of the presentation. And I know there is a presentation on cases that are within the departments, as well as the FRs that we have submitted to Scopa. We will then get guidance from the Honorable Chair as how we go forward. But that will be the submission from the Department of Arts and Culture in relation to January.
Okay, I think, colleagues, you've noted your questions. There is a report on the cases. I think our administrator is just checking. We didn't receive it. I also looked at the annexure. I didn't find it. I think if that annexure can be emailed to us, because I also did not find an annexure in my email. But perhaps you can speak to it in the meantime, HOD, and maybe share your screen.
No laptops.
Huh? No laptops. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think perhaps you can send it to us and yeah.
Then, Chair, the question is, share.
Yes. I think the hard copies, yes.
The organization was initially promised 100,000, reported the matter, and there was conclusion between the departmental senior manager and the other organization. So progress to date is that the investigation has been completed. The investigation could not find prima facie evidence of fraudulent activities. It transpired that due to budget constraints, the region decided to reduce the amount allocated to the complaint and use the balance to fund another organization. The senior manager involved failed to inform the complainant, leading to the complainant alleging that there was corruption. A warning was then given to the senior manager for misleading the organization, failing to inform the organization that there were changes on the budget and for bringing the department into disrepute. The second one was an investigation into the alleged irregular expenditure between April 2020 and March 2021 that amounted to 70.83 million, where it talks to irregular expenditure. There were no instances of fraud and corruption that were identified. Some instances were as a result of negligence from some officials. Letters of caution have been issued to the officials concerned. And we conclude by saying that this irregular expenditure was mainly emanating from prior years, and the department then applied for condonation of the irregular expenditure incurred. However, it's one of those that were not approved by provincial treasurer. It should also be noted that some of the irregular expenditure transactions not condoned had been condoned by provincial treasury in prior years. The third one is an investigation to alleged fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Fruitless and wasteful expenditure transaction uncovered by the department for financial year 2020-2021, amount 1,897,000. There were instances of fraud and corruption identified. Some instances were as a result of negligence from some officials. Letters of caution were then written to the officials concerned. The investigation has been completed. The investigation revealed that the expenditure was indeed fruitless and wasteful, and recommended that accounting officer writes off expenditure as the main reason, root cause for fruitless and wasteful was due to COVID-19 lockdown, not due to negligence by the departmental official concerned. The invoices that attracted interest could not be delivered to the head office on time for processing due to the hard lockdown. It's those type of invoices that come in late. Number 4 is an investigation on fruitless and wasteful that with regards to telecom, which I dealt with earlier on. I will then go to the final response by the department or submission. The department had to amend the disclosure notes and move 2.752 million from fruitless and wasteful expenditure notes to irregular expenditure. The balance of 1.48 million remained as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. and the department will be applying for condonation of this amount through provincial treasury. Consequent management was instituted, or we began the consequence management. That's when the director responsible for libraries resigned. Investigation into variation orders for Tugutugu infrastructure project. The principal agent responsible for the project recommended variation orders, which the accounting officer required scrutiny, and the investigation revealed that there were masculations that were made by the principal agent that resulted in the need to apply for variation orders inevitable. The investigation could not pick up any fraudulent activities on the process, and therefore recommended that the variation orders should be approved by the accounting officer, and more intense monitoring of the project was recommended. Gaps were identified on SLAs signed by principal agents, and the investigation recommended that all future SLAs with project managers should include a clause regarding miscalculations, BOQs, that will enable the department to penalize them for any variation orders that are recommended that are questionable. Then 6 is investigation into allegations of fraud S&T claims submitted by a senior official. That was an amount of 50,000. The investigation could not find any proof of traveling from the official consent. Red flags were picked up by the investigation on the claims submitted by the official. The preliminary investigation was completed by the department. A full-scale forensic investigation was then recommended. The rationale behind the recommendation was particularly because there was prima facie evidence that the official had been submitting fraudulent fuel claims that could not be backed up by any toll gate or lunch invoices or proof of traveling. The investigation is still in progress, and OTP investigators are continually requesting documents from the department. It should also be noted that the department requested OTP to expand the scope of the investigation and evaluate the claims by this particular official for the past 24 months since the time we picked up the one that was fraudulent. So that's what we have requested from Provincial Treasury. And they're still going on with that. Now we move, Honorable Chair, to external investigations. In terms of the external investigations, we've got about 8, Honorable Chair, if I'm not mistaken, and the investigation into maladministration issues relating to SCM. The investigation was in relation to maladministration involving the former accounting officer, senior managers, and SCM. Amount is unknown, and the outcome of the findings is that 4 departmental officials were found liable for the maladministration. 2 of the 4 officials were subjected to disciplinary actions. However, they were found not guilty by the presiding officer. So that's the process that was outside. The other 2 officials had already left the department, and civil claims are still underway against them. Criminal cases are CSA 474-05-2017, CSA 148-03-2017. They were opened with SAPS. With SAPS. It should also be noted that this investigation was concluded in 2017. However, it was counted as completed in 2020-21 financial year, as it's still appearing on the report submitted by OTP Forensic on 31 March 2021. The next one is various irregularities within the administration of the KZN Music House. On that one, the criminal case number is CSA S453-11-2017. The case is still with the prosecutor for action. It should be noted that this investigation was concluded in 2017. However, it was counted as complete in 2020-2021 financial year, as it is still appearing in the report submitted by OTP Forensic on 31 March 2021. Number 3, allegations of irregularities relating to Ladysmith Black Mambazo Indigenous Music Academy. The matter was closed by the Provincial Forensic Unit without any action, as no funds were transferred by the department to anyone. 4, allegation of gross abuse of power by senior official. The disciplinary proceedings are underway for the head of department. And then the 5th one is allegation of irregularities relating to renovations at Mtubatuba Library. That one, the investigation is still in progress. And then the 6th one is investigation into the payment of Black Designs architects for Imbali Library drawings. that investigation was closed due to lack of sufficient documents. Then number 7 is the investigation into the payment to the service provider for an event that never took place. On that matter, is closed. Forensic awaiting for the department to finalize all the process to recover the funds from the service provider, but from their side, it is closed. That is the one that we are involved in it with the National Sports, Arts and Culture. It's the one, Honorable Chair, where we were requested to pay the service provider out of the money for the province. The service provider did not do the work. When we went and claimed at National, they asked for proof that the service provider has done the work, which was appointed by National, and that's the issue that we are still dealing with. Then number 8, investigation. Maybe let me also say that on that, the service provider has agreed to come back and spend the money, but the service provider and us are proposing to National a different way of doing it rather than going to at the ICC and so on due to COVID. But we are still waiting for National to say whether they accept that so that we recover our money that we paid the service provider from National. So we have done that exercise. The last meeting we had with National was last week. The investigation to the panel of service providers for the provision of events management, that preliminary investigation has been completed and field work is underway. So that matter is closed. It's still in progress. The preliminary investigation has been completed and field work is underway. So that would be the last one, Honorable Chair, in terms of the external matters. Thank you very much.
Report. Can I request that a copy of the investigations document be forwarded to us? We have not received it, right? And I think honorable members would want to go through that as well. We may have further follow-ups once we've looked at that. But colleagues, the floor is now open to you. Hand of Honorable Kaula. Honorable Nkosi, let's start with you. Honorable Kaula and then Honorable Nkosi.
Did you see mine, Stalo? Did you see my hand, Stalo?
The provincial treasury to assist with the appointment of additional capacity. No. I'm wrong. It's a slide 14. The CFO has explored the options, and according to paragraph 626364 of the Irregular Expenditure Framework, the accounting officer can write off. I've never heard of this. I've been going through my MFMA accounting office and CFO. I don't know. I'd like to find out how true this is, because I'm asking myself, if this were the case, why would you have had to apply to Treasury in the first place if the powers are with you originally? But you have to apply to Treasury for condonation. And if they don't condone, you come back and say, oh, you don't want to do it, I'm doing it myself. it sounds very strange. Can you unpack this for me? I don't want to believe it this lightly, Chairperson. It sounds very strange that there is something like this. Why would we be having such a backlog of condemnations if the accounting officers in the province were having this power? You know the kind of backlog we have and the kind of the declined condemnations that we have from the reports that we get from Treasury. You apply this much and they approve this much and the backlog is still this much. Now, if you had this clause, it wouldn't be the case. So I don't want to, you know, I am refusing to agree to this CFO until you give me something that is in black and white legally from this thing called MFMA saying that I think you are misleading my nephew. Don't do this, Mshanam. You are going to get arrested. You're the CFO. I'm doubting your CFO. The next page, you are listing a string of big people in the department who have jumped ship. You know, this thing is really, you know, it's getting all of us in the province up to here. That people will do wrong things. When they get pursued, they run away and nothing happens. And it's the second thing, Chair, that I don't want to believe that after running away, if they are not with the public service, then it's chapter closed. It can't be. Pursue them. I'm sure there will be other avenues to pursue these people with the wrong things that they left in your department. Don't close the chapter. Don't close the door. Look at go to legal people, find out what else can be done. Because it can't be just that people are just going to mess up with government. When they've finished messing up with government, they run away. They don't get employed by other departments because they know you will have your feelers there. They go elsewhere. Find the elsewhere where they are. Pursue them. It can't be the chapter closed. I think it's the same story with the next page, which is page 16. My last one, Chairperson, will be on the investigations. It's number 2, where the report says it should be noted that this investigation was concluded. It's KZN Music House. That has been a story of the province for years. Now, it was counted as completed in 2021 financial year, as it's still appearing in the report by the OTP Forensic at 31 March 2021. I just want to find the outcome because this report says nothing about the outcome. What has happened to this story? If you can just talk to it as to what has been the final outcome on it. Thanks, Chairperson.
Honorable Kaula, possibly we wait 1 minute, but Honorable Teresa comes in. Honorable Teresa. Honorable Teresa, I saw your hand up.
Oh, thank you, Stalo.
Honorable Teresa.
Yes, Stalo. You hear me?
Yeah, he had his hand up. Okay, I think Honorable Nkosi proceed because I can't find. But he did have his hand up.
Yes, I'm talking, Stalo. Stalo.
Chair, I were in a mess here. I mean, these IT guys, and we can't hear a thing at the moment.
Yeah, Stalo.
Aye. And Kabo does not read the messages to find out that we are complaining. All members are complaining. The chair cannot even pick us up.
Hey, Mfundisi ngiyakuzwa mina ngizwa wena.
Ngiyakuzwa ngibuzwa very clearly.
Hey,
I think ukhabo on a problem okufanele ayisort out ne-IT yakhe ngoba uyena ongakwazi ukusilinka. Uchairman akakaze angizwe selokuqalile ngizama ukumtshela.
Uyazi nami into efanayo.
Now comrade Nomakek. Yeah.
Yes, hear you.
And Honorable Khawula uyasizwa.
But we have managed to hear him.
Yeah, but now, manje akazwakali inhlobo, you know.
I think uKhawula akasizwa thina wathi nabe ngimuzwe ekhuluma but mase ngiyaphendula ngoba ngiyamuzwa engimemeza futhi akangizwa na.
At the moment I think Honorable Nkosi okufanele ngabe uyakhuluma ngoba uyena unikezwe ithuba but nasimuzwe. Maybe ke let's all write la egroupini ukuthi we are not getting to the chair. But kusho konke lento yokulinka ngomoya manje ayiyeke esambeni sohlala physically ayikho lento.
Uyabona nje mina namhlanje mfundisi ngifaka umuntu ongeke emhlanganweni.
Very true. Angazi usilinke kanjani because indlela silinke ngayo is pretty abnormal ukhabo. Whether it's IT people I do not know, but I think we must escalate this to uDuma akadile nayo no Zethembiso. And Wesukabo is not picking up phone yakhe.
There might be others that I might have forgotten, but I remember.
Now, sesiyamuzwa kuNkosi.
The process started when the national was.
Are we hearing Nkosi?
That responsibility to the provincial treasury.
Yes,
there were issues that were raised. One of them was the capacity on the part of.
But I don't think bona bayakuzwa bayasizwa.
This work.
I don't think so. Ngoba nje basikhuluma ngifanga bayama baqalela kodwa
this money failed. We got the answer to that one. Then we wanted to know the areas that departments would have to provide for the irregular expenditure to be condoned. They gave, if I'm not mistaken, the two reasons. And then what are other reasons that they are giving in relation to their standpoint around the question of the refusal to make the condonation? I think I understand. For example, I don't understand. How could you apply consequence management to KK Nkosi, who was the employee of Arts and Culture and who is remaining at home as a retiree? How could you deal with that unless there is investigation that proves that he was involved in fraud and corruption? Then you can go the criminal route. That's my own understanding. But you can educate me, because that's what confused me. When you were raising a lot of things, including this thing that you know I hate with passion, the Dugu library thing, I couldn't even hear very, very well. And all this, you mentioned the 800,000 and then vis-a-vis the cost and whatever. I was not listening because my mind was suppressed by these two fundamental questions. You know why I'm having interest in it? It's because I know that during the midterm, there was engagement between your department and one of our sister committees around the argument that I'm raising on the vacancies. Because you indicated, I remember vividly, it's nice to have a golden mind that doesn't forget.
Elephant mind.
Yeah. You indicated that if certain posts are not filled, then there will be a problem of the utilization of the budget in the specific conditional grants. You know, I remember vividly. That's why I had the interest and I realized there is crisis and whatever. I don't want to talk about other things and whatever. But if you could also, when you are responding to the first area of my confusion, I would even be interested as to the number of posts that are not that were not allowed to be advertised, but which will not be affected by the merger of the two departments. So if you could assist me on in that area, I'll be very happy. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Very much confused, you know, and very much frustrated. If money for the conditional grant will not be spent, when you talk about the library services, it comes with a huge budget in KwaZulu-Natal. If I'm hearing that that money won't be spent, the question will be, how will it be fully covered for the rollover? I don't understand. You talk to me, you know, I've never been in that field where you are yourself. If you could clarify me, that's what is the area of my frustration. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable Nkosi. I'm getting messages from colleagues on the virtual platform. I must apologize. I had earlier recognized Honorable Taliza, whose hand was up, but when I called on him to speak, he did not respond. I'm also aware that Honorable Dube, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, wants to speak. So with your permission, what I will do is call on Honorable Dube to speak now from the virtual platform. I'm hoping IT will ensure that they are given that opportunity, and he will be followed by Honorable Taliza. Honorable Dube?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Yes, please speak.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's unfortunate that we have not picked up a lot of things, particularly in the beginning of the presentation of the HOD, including when Honorable Kaula was asking some very fundamental questions we could not pick up. Also, when Mr. Honorable Nkosi was beginning, we could not pick up. So we are left with some gaps. I think, Chair, maybe I cannot comment much now because there are some gaps that I could not catch up with, but it is a task, a mammoth task that is facing us as a committee. I can acknowledge that and promise that we are definitely going to do something because other matters, you pick them more up clearly when they are put up here in Scopa, not much in the committee, but I appreciate that, Hlalo. We'll work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Dube. Honorable Taliza, can you please come in?
Yes, thank you, Slalo. Can you hear me now, Slalo?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, Slalo. I'm sorry, I was speaking, Slalo. Only Honorable Dube could hear me. No one else. I don't know why. In fact, Slalo, I was in a similar situation like Honorable Dube, because I was always cutting off from the beginning, and my participation was not complete actually. So I'm very sorry for that, and I could not catch up on everything. But there's one thing that I am interested in, which fortunately I had. I can't remember the slide. I think 20 or 21 of where HOD was presenting on irregular expenditure, and he cited two incidents where a treasurer could not condone. I think it's the one for acting CFO who was still in his position and also acting as CFO. And where HOD was asking, they say someone must be disciplined, and who must be disciplined? But eventually he gave the answer that it's himself, because if someone has to act, he must be moved from the where he's acting, so that he will be acting full time there. I think that is why even the payment is increased. But there were two issues, sir. My concern, I didn't hear HOD saying if since these two incidents, these two irregular expenditures, I think the other one was where the official resigned. It was just when they began the investigation, he or she just resigned. I think those are two. Now I didn't hear finally what is going to happen. How is it going to be? How is it going to deal with these two irregular expenditures? Because it's left hanging now. Is it going to be the same thing in the next finding in the next audit? I think HOD must take us through finally what is going to happen. How is it going to resolve this finding so that it goes away? It's not there. I think Honorable Kaula, I think he covered me in a way that even if a person can resign, but I think treasurer maybe is worried that there were no attempts at all to follow up, trying to charge the resigned official. It shows, according to the report from the HOD, there was no attempt at all to try and find this person to face the consequences. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you, Honorable Kundisa, and my apologies for the difficulties both you and Honorable Dube have had. What we will also do is ensure that the transcript of the meeting is sent in particular to the chair of the Portfolio Committee, so that the Portfolio Committee has the benefit of going through what was discussed. I agree with Honorable Dube, because it would be important to look at that. Before we hand over to the HOD and his team, I would like to raise some issues as well. The first one is around Resolution 282 and the issue of the overpayment on the Duku Duku project. Now, we are told that the department was able to offset 2.4 million, which was the value of the work that the contractor had been able to complete. However, we're not told what's going to happen with the balance of the money, because it's an overpayment. So those are funds that have now been lost to the department. And in relation to the consequence management, it is not sufficient that there is just a warning or letter issued. What about recouping of the funds? Because those are public funds. Then on Resolution 282, on page 4, progress and submission to Scopa, which we have received now, this information. There was a warning letter issued to the Director of Infrastructure to fail to prevent the variation order payment of 3 million made without the principal agent, and a letter of caution to the CFO for failing to prevent the variation order payment. Now, what has happened to the variation order payment? Page 4. This was the prevention, right? And the actual funds, because there was a payment that was made. What has happened to the funds? Because we are interested in how those funds come back. Okay. Then the forgery and signature, well, we're glad to see that there's the case number that is there, and responsibility on that. But my concern is what I think honorable members have been raising. Sometimes you can be forgiven for becoming concerned about the convenience with which an employee resigns when something is discovered. Because then the department does not seem to feel obliged to pursue the matter. But the fact is that incorrect things have happened, and although people have resigned, there should be some mechanism given to us as to how attempts made to recover costs. And what we don't want to see is that a long period of time elapses and then it's too late to take any action and the money is gone. Then on the submission, and I really will want to pursue this, and I think Honorable Chair of Finance is here. This issue about the turnaround strategy to ensure that the conditional grant budget will be spent. Now, we have also been told that it is possible that that grant is not going to be spent. And to be quite honest, in terms of the report that we have received here, it seems to me it's not quite likely that grant is not going to be fully spent. Now, I would like to know, when did the department ask Provincial Treasury to assist with the appointment of additional capacity? This letter of request that was forwarded, when was it sent to Treasury? Because we are now in March. We are virtually at the end of the financial year, in fact, weeks away. And if I'm not mistaken, books will close in the next 2 weeks. Right? So when was Treasury requested for this? By the same token, I also want to just raise the issue around the projected under expenditure, where we are told that there were events projected for March 21st and there was some other event. But that National Treasury had said tenders must stop by the 16th of February. If you have an event scheduled for March, I find it difficult to understand how you would tender in February. Should not those tenders and the organization be done months in advance, such that your 16 February deadline would not really have an impact? That is why there is planning, and that is why there's an APP, and that is why you're supposed to look ahead in terms of your procurement processes. If this has not occurred, and the department didn't go out and advertise for these events and for service providers, then the complaint about the 16th of February deadline cannot hold true, because it's poor planning on someone's part. The other matter that I wanted to raise as well is the issue of condonation, where Provincial Treasury it is stated that Provincial Treasury did not approve the condonation because of insufficient documentation. And we are told that the department's unable to get this. Why is the department unable to get the documentation? Because when you make an application for condonation, you have to try and provide as much information as possible to get the irregular expenditure condoned. I'm not certain why the department can't get this documentation. What's the reason for it? This is page 13. Okay, and the financial officer, as Honorable Kaula is concerned, is exploring other possible options, and the option of writing off irregular expenditure not condoned by Treasury. I'm not certain that is such an easy thing to do. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the necessity to go through Treasury. The power would just be given. What I do know is that the accounting officer has authority to condone irregular expenditure up to a certain amount. And once that amount is exceeded, that is when you apply to Treasury for condonation, with a full report being submitted to motivate your condonation. I'll stop at this point. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let me start by listening to my uncle. I withdraw, Honorable Chair. I was confused by the name that I'm seated next to. It says KwaZulu-Natal Legislature Honorable O.B. Kunene with IFP. So I withdraw. But this is the board that has the names that confused me. So I withdraw, Chair. I saw the writings on the name tags. I withdraw. Then, Honorable Chair, let me deal with questions. I don't intend to waste any time because certain confusion on matters. We are also confused. Chair, Honorable Kaula, I think I dealt with the first issue. I've withdrawn. The second issue, paragraph 14. I agree with you, Honorable Kaula. That is why when I presented, I said I'm not going to be implementing that because it's an issue that we still have to explore. So therefore, it's not what I intend. As I said when I presented, I don't intend to follow that. Then the third one. No, you see, Honorable Chair, officials will run away. And there are times when we will be unable to pursue them. And there are times when we'll be able to pursue them. I think Honorable Nkosi put it well when he was explaining what we can do for internal staff and for staff that are within the employ of the staff. And also what we can do if you run away. And that depends, there are two things that we can do. Investigation if it's criminal or civil claim. Now, some of these officials, you have something that you cannot quantify. That might be 10,000. I'm making an example. And you spend maybe 300,000 in terms of trying to get all the info. So there are those things that we need to apply ourselves into. Even when you look into what AG would regard as material in terms of spending, they will say anything above $1 million. So there are things that as an accounting officer you must apply yourself to, where there is value for money in terms of pursuing 30,000, 70,000 and spend 800,000. There are those issues. But we've got a very good example when we managed to pursue an official who has left the employ of the state because we could feel that there is a way to deal with that. That's the example where we have case numbers. Because this official did what he did, and one of the things that we picked up was that this official had no metric. So remember, when we started the process with the official, it was not about the certificate of metric. It was about him not being able to do umsebenzi. But there is no way that we could have taken that to SAPS. But when we picked up that there is no metric here, and we know the case law in terms of metric that has been on the news, then we took that one. And there is an assigned investigation officer into that, and they have even quantified for us the amount that we have paid to the official to the value of 2.5 million. And we are pursuing that. But we could not be able to pursue these other wrong things because the SAPS, they don't have interest in terms of assisting us. But where we have a way and we can pursue, we will not hesitate to do that. Let me make an example of another one. You remember there's an investigation with the police. I went to Provincial Treasury, HOT, to say one of the organizations that was working with us as part of the officials is implicated in the alleged irregularity. Is there a way that we blacklist this company? And the HOT was saying to me, you can't, because there is a particular process that has to do with blacklisting. But what you can do is to wait for an investigation by the SAPS because they are looking at that, this company was there, and then you proceed. This company, there were officials of the department, they left, but we are still pursuing it. But this one of a director, library services, It was a matter where we were beginning, Honorable, I think it's Honorable Teliza who says there was no evidence of even starting it there. That we started the process, we wrote to the official, because there's this ad alpataram rule that you apply. Explain yourself here. Then when this official was supposed to explain herself, he just resigned. Then we tried to look whether there is capacity within the department to move for civil claim. There was nothing to claim that could hold water and that could justify. But when we find something, we'll always go back. That you committed a crime 2 years ago, 5 years ago, we can go back. But for now, there is nothing that makes us to pursue these others outside of the norm. Another example, we have an official that did not deal with the issue of $500,000 for Millennium. This official left and went to the Department of Trade and Industry. We are pursuing that. And we are writing to the Director General of Trade and Industry to say, Nangu official from Arts and Culture pursue. So we are making follow-ups. So there are areas where even when you see it, you look at the amounts. There is a case, for instance, which forensic is dealing with, where an official of the department is alleged to have squandered funds in relation to accounts that were put in a library. That amount is an amount of about 60,000. Now we've said to Provincial Treasury, don't just look at this 40,000. Maybe this official has been doing these things even before. Now, that investigation is continuing. But the point is that official is no longer with the Department of Arts and Culture. We know. He is now with social development. But once we get everything, we will take that, we take it to social development and we say, here are the findings, here is what has happened, this official is with you. We had not concluded. So that's how, honorable members, we are looking at this, and where there is clear evidence and process of civil claim and of going to the police, we will not hesitate, as there is evidence on the cases of certain officials who have left, but we are pursuing. But maybe we can do more, but some of these things of pursuing people outside are very costly. And therefore we need then maybe to have a provincial department, a KZN department approach that will say, in such cases, what do you do? Do we not have a structure that deals with such cases, screen them, see if there is, which should not be sitting with arts and culture, sit somewhere where it's transversal, maybe with treasury and so on. And then they guide us as departments whether we can pursue and there's value for money. Because another question that I'll have to come and answer at Scopa and Finance Committee is value for money. So that would assist us if then there could be a resolution that deals exactly with that, how, when, and by whom. And Honorable Chair, I then deal with the issue of the case at the Music House, the outcome. Mr. Shozi will deal with that as to what was the outcome of the case at the Music House in terms of the case. So Mr. Shozi will deal with that. Then the issue of Honorable Nkosi. Kunzim. I'm glad that Honorable Nkosi remember that I've shared this with the committee. Because for me to spend, Honorable Chair, on the grant on anything and to perform as an accounting officer, when I sign the performance agreement goes with a commitment of resources. So when you take away the resources, I'm not going to perform. That is why I was putting these matters on record in all the committees. It's finance, it's on record. It's Scopa, it's on record. It's Arts and Culture Portfolio Committee, it's on record. I have even, honorable members, written to my executive authority, requesting my executive authority to engage with the Premier. And in that letter, which is in black and white, to cover myself as the accounting office, it says I should not be held accountable for this, and that, because I don't have 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I know how these things will come back and on to me. So I've covered myself to deal with those things, because I cannot be expected to deliver on conditional grant when the submitting and the requesting department has no leadership. No chief director, library, archives and museums, no direct. And when I pursue, I engage. Even I think it was the Finance Portfolio Committee as a committee took a decision to engage and assist the Department of Arts and Culture in terms of that. The MEC engaged and OTP refused. I don't know the reasons, because sport and recreation and arts and culture, the commonalities are in program 1. The initial correspondence when I give to the committee talk to us not appointing for program 1. I remember when I was before the committee of finance, I became emotional when I was dealing with this particular issue. I even said, it looks like someone is setting me for failure. I even made that statement. And it's the Department of Arts and Culture that has more posts that are vacant than sport and recreation. Now, sport and recreation has 2 programs, Honorable Chair. Program 1 and Program 2. There is nothing that arts and culture does and that will affect Program 2 of sport and recreation. There's scientific evidence to that effect. There is nothing that we do for library, archives, and museums, which is our Program 3, and cultural affairs, which is Program 2, that will affect sport and recreation. Hence, I have been refused the resources to perform my duties as the accounting office. And therefore, the result of that is that there won't be performance. And at least it's the issue that are on record that I've raised. So, Honorable Nkosi, I don't know why OTP refused, but the reason that was given to us is that in terms of DPSA and in terms of the structures when they emerge, you freeze all the posts, you are not going to continue to fill those posts. It was at a meeting that was held in December 31, New Year's Eve, 2021, where there was myself, the Premier, and the MEC, where we said to the Premier, look, I'm the accounting officer, I have an agreement with you, this is my dilemma. I'm not going to perform. Only at that meeting, after 2 weeks, then the Premier came back and said, we are only approving these 8. I said to the Premier, Premier, the timelines as these posts are approved in January, if they were to be approved in January, there's a lead of 2 months in appointments. By the time I get this post, it will be late. Now, I'm on record in all those things that relates to those particular matters. So all that then affects the performance of the department. The department is not going to perform when you don't have the dash. Now, Honorable Chair, the provincial treasury on refusal to condone, all the other items that Honorable Nkosi was mentioning, we submitted. The only item that I can confirm that we did not support is the one on consequence management. Because of what I've covered in terms of that, once you leave, I have no authority over you. You have left. Unless we do this thing, we find that there's prima facie evidence of corruption and so on. But I have no authority over you. I only have authority on the staff that are within the department. So our view is that we submitted everything. Mtoko will cover that aspect that the chair was talking about. What was the information that could not be found? Because there's a specific issue on that, but on others, because it's something that was old and that the documentation is not there, Mtoko will cover that one that deals with the documentation that was not sent to provincial treasury, other than if there is any, other than consequence management. But all Honorable Nkosi, through you, Chair, that treasury was with us, they were working, but they said because there is no evidence of consequence management, and there won't be any because of what I have presented to the committee. But where there is a way, we've dealt with that. So indeed, Chairperson, I would answer those 2 issues in that manner. Honorable Chair then raised the issue of overpayment. I'm not a finance person. The proper breakdown the CFO can give as to what about the balance. But Honorable Chair, I can safely say that all these amounts, whether it's 3 million or 4 million and so on, we did the spreadsheet and the calculations. We then engaged and submitted the evidence to AG of acknowledgement of debt by the contractor. So all the amounts that are involved, the contractor has acknowledged that yes, I'm indebted to the Department of Arts and Culture on these amounts. So that's the summary I can give. But in terms of the exact figures, the CFO will be better than me. So the answer to that, where then is the other balance? It's part of the acknowledgement of debt. And the CFO, when the CFO gives the amounts, it will come to that point that I was raising, that where I was saying that if you look at Tugutu, if we were to terminate the contractor today, in terms of the money that we still have in the kit that we have not given to the contractor, the calculations are that we will lose, if they were not to acknowledge their debt, 8,000. So the CFO will deal with the actual numbers, but we've got an acknowledgement of debt with all these issues that are here, and it was presented to Provincial Treasury whilst they were doing the audit in the department. Now, what happened to variation order, I think that detail also the CFO will cover. Officials that has resigned, I think I dealt with that, we will wish and we need guidance and assistance on a transversal resolution and a committee that will help us with that so that we are able to justify value for money. Treasury request for assistance, when was it? It was in October 2021 when I first engaged with the accounting officer for Treasury. The first meeting which then dealt with the strategy and everything, was in November. Actual date was in November 2021 when we agreed on that. So those are the dates. And then and that's that, Honorable Chair. Then I would, if through you, Chair, would allow Mtogo to cover those other areas, and then the CFO. Thank you very much.
Thank you, HOD. Good afternoon once again, honorable members. My name is Mtogozi Sishozi. I will just deal with the outcome of the KZN Music House investigation. 3 officials, senior officials in that entity were found to have committed financial misconduct. However, due to the fact that the entity closed down around 2014, 2015, when the investigation was concluded in 2017, which was like 2-3 years after, there could not be any disciplinary actions that could be instituted against the 3 officials. However, the investigators then went on to open a case, a criminal case with SAPS, of which that particular criminal case is with the prosecutor for prosecution. So there is the status or the outcome of the KZN Music House. Maybe let me also deal with the other information that could not be submitted to Provincial Treasury for condonation. There was nothing else that was not submitted by the department. It was only the consequence management that could not be submitted by the department. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, just before the CFO, there's one area that I forgot to cover, which was specific. The number of posts. The total number of posts that are vacant in the department is 58 that we've been dealing with, 58. Of the 58, 43 are program 2 and 3. 15 is program 1. Of the 43, between program 2 and 3, only 8 were approved in January 2022. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, HOD and colleagues. I'm Nolubaba Lobola, the Chief Financial Officer. I will respond to the question around the variation order in respect of Tugutugu, which was an overpayment, the recoverability thereof, as well as the actual amount in terms of the total overpayment for Tugutugu. Let me start by saying that the contractor is still on site, as the HOD has already reported. There has been a letter of default that was issued to them. They were given 10 days and a further 5 days that is ending on Friday this week. So from that time until now, there has been some work that will still need to be quantified that they have performed, and to see if they met the obligation in terms of the letter of default, whether they met all those obligations, and if not, they will then be terminated. There is a claim that they submitted, which was never paid, of 2.4 million. Without going back, in the interest of time, Chair, explaining the detail of the overpayment, which is totaling 4.6 million, which was the variation order of 3 million, as well as a difference between an actual payment of 4 million that was made vis-a-vis 2.4 million that was approved, resulting in a difference of 1.5. So when you add the 1,581,455 rand 91 cents, as well as the 3,020,521, which was a variation order, they give you the total overpayment of 4.6 million. Those are the figures, those are the amounts, 3 million and 1.5 million, resulting in an overpayment of a total of 4.6. There is a risk, Chair. From the 4.6 million, they've submitted a certificate of 2.4. But what about the balance? That was the question. The HOD did indicate that there's an amount of 2,153,577.13, which is a retention monies. Each time there's a certificate or there's a claim, there's a certain percentage that is withheld by the department and not paid to the contractor. In an event that the contractor abandons the site or is fired, those monies are monies that are already with the department, and they could be used to offset. If we add the 2.4, that is the claim they submitted and that was not paid, as well as this 2.1, they amount to around 4.6, which is the amount they are owing the department. But there is a slight difference of 7,000 rand. And that 7,000 rand is the risk that it cannot be recovered. But the rest of the money can be recovered in the event that they abandon the site or they are terminated from the retention monies, as well as from that certificate that they claimed and was never paid. So to answer the question, Chair, there's a risk that the 7,000 rand might not be recovered, but the rest of the money can be recovered from the unpaid certificate as well as the retention monies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for those responses. Colleagues, any follow-up? I think we'll have to look at the resolutions. I can see some of the difficulties. Perhaps there is some hope for the department HOD, because the Premier did say 1st of April that merger would become effective. Let's hope that the rationalizing and the merging and all of that assists. But we must, in fairness, also say, HOD, that the department has been a chronic underspender of grants. This issue of unspent conditional grants on libraries goes back many financial years. It's pre this merger declaration, all of that, and that has been an issue. I think our concern as Scopa would be that National Treasury might look at the under expenditure, and if it finds that it's not committed funds, might then reduce your conditional grant allocation so that the province would lose funds and you might get a reduced conditional grants allocation. I think that is one of the major concerns, and hopefully we don't get to that point. I think on the consequence management, we hear you. Where people leave and kind of disappear out of the public service, it is difficult, and the civil matters are the ones to look at. I think the idea that there must be some advice and guidance provided to departments as to what is worthwhile by way of cost recovery without incurring costs is an important consideration. And it's something maybe Treasury must look at, even if there used to be some team in the office of the Premier. There was a special team. I don't know what happened to it, but that kind of guidance one can understand. And I think, I don't know, colleagues, if there's anything else that you wish to add. Are we okay? All right, we will follow up with some of the resolutions. We understand the constraints and the difficulties that are there, but equally there are things that could have been done better. I think, all of that is there. But let us thank you very much for availing yourselves. There is a very late lunch now. You're welcome to join. Thank you very much. Colleagues, tomorrow at 9, I'm just raising the issue with Cabo and IT. They must give us some assurance that we have a proper IT connection, because I'm not happy with this matter of, the people being excluded. So let's hope that we get some assurance about that. We may eventually have to end up doing everything through Teams, even whether we are physical or not, but let's have the option so that there's a proper solution. Okay, thank you very much. Colleagues, lunch, supper, early supper, whatever, it's there.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.